Chapter 14:14. Yin-Yang chuckled bitterly. Returning to the bound of universe this time is indeed glorious, but it's hard for me to be free. Big brother is right. Beside him, Dongfang Haoren, Shimin Fafu and Beigong Liuli coughed dryly, their pretense of composure gone. The true meaning of Yin-Yang's words almost made the three rulers feel ashamed. The Fox Emperor glanced at him and said with a smile, "Third brother, you look troubled. Is it because you've been suppressed by the three heavenly palaces?" "Well, Dongfang and the others are all here and they look troubled. Even if they didn't instruct you, it must be their sons and disciples who want to kill you. However, with your temper and the way you handle things, I'm sure you've killed some of their sons and disciples, haven't you?" Yin-Yang was shocked. "Big brother, you're a prophet. It's not entirely accurate, but it's not far from it. What's so special about being able to predict things? The old geezers didn't move and you didn't die. My royal blood jade pendant also didn't have any reaction. That means that you were scared but not in danger. Since you're fine, then the one who's in trouble is naturally someone else. I don't even need to use my brain. What you said is not entirely accurate, but it's not far from it. Did you show mercy and not kill? This isn't like you." Yin-Yang chuckled bitterly and changed the topic. "I heard that Big Brother has started to act?" The Fox Emperor snorted and said, "What do you mean by I've started to act? It's that old bastard Nine Lives cat. He insisted on creating a commotion. What else can I do? Do I have to watch him risk his life alone? I mean, I have to risk my life with a fool. Look at me now, I'm completely passive. I can only drag this on for as long as I can." Before the Fox Emperor had even finished speaking, the idiot Nine Lives cat ancestor's face had already appeared on the screen. His face was filled with embarrassment, and it was clear that he had been mocked quite a bit by the Fox Emperor during this period of time. He was completely at the mercy of the Fox Emperor, and he waved his hands awkwardly. "Third brother, you still look like a fox." Yin-Yang was exasperated. "Leave it to others if you don't know how to speak. What you said makes me want to beat you up." Dongfang Haoren came over and asked, "Fox Emperor, what's the situation over there? Is there anything we can help with? Just say it." The Fox Emperor looked deeply at Dongfang Haoren with a faint smile and said, "Dongfang, no matter how we fight, it is a matter of the Yao race. It has nothing to do with your human race, so you don't need to worry about it. Dongfang Haoren, don't think that we're allies with you humans just because we rebelled. That's impossible. And if you humans want to take advantage of this matter, don't even think about it. The enemy of my enemy is not necessarily my friend." The Fox Emperor said calmly, "Even if the demon clan is in a state of chaos right now, if you humans dare to attack at this time, then both sides will immediately turn their weapons around and work together to deal with you. Nine Lives and I will most likely charge to the front lines. Who asked us to not fear death? So, there's no need to worry and there's no need to overthink things." The Fox Emperor's words were harsh, causing Dongfang Haoren and the others to shake their heads and sigh. Even though Zhang Xian had expected that the Fox Emperor would say such a thing, he had still harbored some hope in his heart. But at this moment, it was inevitable that he would be disappointed. The human heart was strange, but a demonic heart was as pure as a beast's. It had always been so and had never changed. Yin-Yang said from the side, "Big brother, I don't care about your matters, but if it really comes down to it, it's your business and your life if you fight to the death, but you have to send sister-in-law and nephews over to me no matter what." The Fox Emperor and the Feline Emperor's eyes glinted with warmth. "Very well." Then the Fox Emperor cut off the communication unilaterally. Yin-Yang looked at the jade pendant for a while and thought about it before turning his head quietly. "The timing of the incident isn't good, but it's still a good thing overall. It's just that there aren't many opportunities for us to take advantage of." Beigong Liuli chuckled. "I've already said that there's no hope, but both of them insisted on trying." Dongfang Haoren said, "There's no loss in trying this, we can give up completely. Besides, it's not like we didn't gain anything from this exchange. At least we know for sure that the Fox Emperor and the Feline Emperor are really rebelling. It's not a smokescreen." He thought about it and said, "If we intervene rashly, the demon race will return to being a united front. If we don't intervene, they can still be chaotic for a period of time. Since that's the case, let's just wait and see." He turned to look at Yin-Yang. "What are your plans? Are you going to intervene in this as a private matter?" Yin-Yang was a human, but he was also the sworn brother of the Fox Emperor and the Feline Emperor. He had a close relationship with the two races, so it would be reasonable if he intervened as a private matter. However, with Yin-Yang's help, the Fox Emperor and the Feline Emperor's abilities would increase by at least 20%, which would definitely cause more losses in the demon race's internal strife. Yun Yang's gaze flickered as he said, "The human heart is treacherous, and it's not just an empty saying. The demon race won't trust any humans during this period of time, and I'm not in the position to intervene. Recuperating and elevating their abilities are the Temple of Nine Supreme's top priority at this stage. This process will take at least 3 years." The 4 rulers exchanged looks and said, "Very well. We'll definitely fight for 3 years for you. There's one more thing." Shiman Fanfu reminded, "The Supreme Heaven Pavilion selection will begin in the 8th month of next year. There's still a whole year from now. Yunyang, you must attend the selection this time." Yunyang was silent for a moment before he replied in a low voice, "All right." The plan was set. Dongfang Haoren and the others left the Temple of Nine Supremes swiftly. After Dongfang Haoren and the others descended the mountain, they did not stay any longer and returned to their respective palaces. Yunyang contacted the Fox Emperor once more after Dongfang Haoren and the others had left. Dongfang Haoren and the others already knew what they needed to know. The rest was what they should not know. Dongfang Haoren had left immediately because he understood this as well. The 4 rulers were doing this for the continuation of mankind. Whether it was to add insult to injury when the demon race was in a state of chaos, it was only right for them to do whatever they could. They left immediately so that Yunyang could contact the Fox Emperor quickly and get the real news and valuable clues. As long as they were still around, even if Yunyang contacted the Fox Emperor again, the latter would not say a word. How could a sovereign soul be so easily deceived? "Big brother, what happened on your side? I want to hear the truth. Your brother Cat was indeed rash in this matter. You know, for those of us who travel outside for the sake of safety, we basically don't bring our soul origin bodies with us. Everyone's foundation is stored in an absolutely secret place, where they are constantly cultivating and nurturing their foundation. And that secret place is something that only we know about, and no matter how good our relationship is, we wouldn't dare to reveal it. Your brother Cat had just escaped not long ago and was affected by the art of sealing heaven. His ability was greatly reduced. If the Phoenix Emperor hadn't held back, he might not have survived. Since he was determined to counterattack, he naturally needed to fuse as soon as possible, in case someone with ulterior motives attacked his nest. However, although his fusion this time was successful, it was still discovered. The Phoenix Emperor had planted many spies in the former location of the cat race's imperial city. When the Cat Emperor fused, his aura leaked out. The Fox Emperor was extremely helpless about this. Also, most importantly, the fact that your nephew isn't dead has been discovered. Furthermore, rumors have started to spread throughout the demon plane, saying that your nephew has come back to life and that the heavens did not take his life. This is the true ruler of the demon race. The demon emperor is especially wary of this. Therefore, the internal strife of the demon race this time isn't only because of your brother Cat, although in name the spearhead is all pointed at him. However, the situation is still stable now. The Fox race has been running the Crimson Soul Mountain for a long time. They don't plan to attack the demon race's territory by force, only seeking to protect themselves. They can handle it. After all, there's still a long way to go before the final battle. No matter how enraged the demon emperor is, the other sovereigns don't really want to kill us both. It's because of this that we can't turn to the human race. Never. The Fox Emperor was very nonchalant. Yunyang frowned and changed the topic. "Then do you mean to say that what you've come into contact with me is actually just a clone? Even the one imprisoned by Brother Cat is essentially just an avatar?" "You can't say that. Every one of us who travels outside has a complete will and a complete body, but, as sovereigns, how can we not have a backup plan? Everyone cherishes their lives. Besides, leaving a backup plan means that we're cultivating at all times and places. It's a double cultivation. However, it's not surprising that you're surprised. When you reach the cultivation base of a saint, you'll naturally understand the mystery behind this. This is a specialty of a saint-level cultivator." The Fox Emperor chuckled and said softly, "The one I'm most troubled about is your nephew. Now, he's the most important target of the dragon race and the phoenix race." Yunyang pondered for a moment and asked, "Are you confident that you can protect him?" The Fox Emperor was silent for a long time. "He's my last resort. If I can't protect him, it'll be the moment I break off all ties with the Demon Emperor's bloodline. If we're all doomed, remember to shatter this jade pendant in your hand when you come to the demon race's base and scatter the Emperor's blood essence. You'll be able to find the blood of life and a strand of his soul that I've left for my son. I've prepared these just now. No matter how capable others are, they won't be able to find them, but you can." He said softly, "If that day really comes, I'll have to rely on you for everything after this. Yunyang understood what he meant immediately. If they really could not protect him, the Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor would stake it all and launch an all-out counterattack, igniting the demon race's internal strife. If it really came down to a final battle facing the entire demon race, it was only a matter of time before the Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor were defeated. There was no chance of them surviving. There was no doubt that they would die. Therefore, what he said just now was more to entrust the Fox Crown Prince's future to Yunyang. Yunyang took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "All right. There's one more thing. I've secretly built a warehouse, a small cave the size of a human head. I've placed 100 spatial rings in it." The Fox Emperor's voice was low and indifferent. "These are what I've prepared for you. If anything really happens and the cat and I die, they're yours. By then my blood will guide you to them." Yunyang kept quiet for a moment and said in a low voice, "All right." He understood it very well. Those space rings must contain an extremely large amount of resources, enough to shock the entire world. The Fox Emperor had left this as a backup in case he was forced to a dead end. These were the capital that the Fox Emperor had left for the Fox Crown Prince to stage a comeback. If so, there would be no shortage of them. The Fox Emperor had given much thought to his son. However, when the time came, Yunyang would be the one to obtain them first. As for whether Yunyang would hand them over to the Fox Crown Prince after he had obtained them, whether he would look for the Fox Crown Prince's soul to revive him, or even how much he would hand over, these were all matters that needed to be discussed. After all, no one could guarantee what Yunyang would do. The human heart was treacherous. Yunyang was also human, unfortunately. No matter what guarantee Yunyang made now, no matter how generous and righteous he sounded, it would still be useless before the reality of the future. It would be nonsense if the Fox Emperor could believe him completely. Everything, including how the resources would be used, was all within Yunyang's will. It should be Yunyang's will in the future. The Fox Emperor did not make it clear and Yunyang did not make any promises either. Both of them knew that it was useless to say anything at this point in time. Even Yunyang's current state of mind was hard to predict. Therefore, the Fox Emperor had simply said, "Those are yours. How you use them is your business. You're greedy, but it's given to you by your sworn brother, so it's not considered greedy. If you choose to let your nephew use them, it's because you're loyal to your brother. It has nothing to do with what I'm entrusting to you today. I'm not forcing you with the loyalty of my brother either. Brother, take care." The Fox Emperor said softly, "If there are no accidents, we should be able to hang on for a year." Yunyang's gaze flashed as he said, "I understand. I thank my brother for your kindness." The Fox Emperor disappeared for the second time. Yunyang stood up slowly. "1 year," he murmured. The Fox Emperor's words were clear. "If there are no accidents, 1 year. What if there were accidents? What can I do in a year's time?" The residence of 9 Supremes, or rather, the Palace of 9 Supremes now, had begun its days of torment. The so-called torment was probably what Xiao Wui, Ping Zun Yu and Lang Fantian thought to them. In the eyes of the old friends of the residence of 9 Supremes, everything that was happening before their eyes was merely a show of energy. On the first day after the spiritual qi storm ended, the Palace of 9 Supremes was quiet. Everyone was trying their best to adjust the spiritual qi that they had absorbed. It was extremely quiet, without a trace of movement. In spite of this, hundreds of people had already finished adjusting and had come out to train, tormenting themselves as if their lives depended on it, trying to adapt to the sudden surge in their abilities as soon as possible. These hundreds of people were the original members of the residence of 9 Supremes. After all, the old members of the residence of 9 Supremes were not new to the situation, so they were relatively more adaptable. In addition, they had their own ways to adjust to the situation. Sparring battles, using the explosive pace of battle to hone in on one's condition, so that one's power could truly match one's own. It was the only way to succeed. On the second day, the situation gradually spread. Basically, everyone was on the move. The area within 10,000 miles of the Palace of 9 Supremes was filled with fighting scenes that were drenched in sweat. The disciples who were sparring and training did not stop for a single moment. Many children were exhausted from training, lying on the ground and twitching, but they still mustered their mystical qi in an attempt to recover as soon as possible so that they could proceed to the next round of training. There were also people shouting from the side, "Hang in there. Stand up. Hang in there." I won't say anything else, but if anyone embarrasses the Palace of 9 Supremes when they go out to roam the martial world, you know it. You'll be representing the Palace of 9 Supremes no matter where you go when you go out on your own. Pride is yours, but it's given by others. We roamed the world to earn pride for the Palace of Nine Supremes. We mustn't be embarrassed. Pride isn't something you can earn just by lying down like this. Get up. The corners of Xiao Wui, Lang Fantian, and the other newly promoted higher-ups' mouths twitched. They knew that although they had worked extremely hard in their own cultivation, they were far from the Palace of Nine Supremes' disciples. When he was tired, he would rest and adjust his Xian Qi. After that, he would cultivate his mood. He had to wait until his mood was better before he could cultivate his martial skills. The way of cultivation was about relaxation and tension. More haste, less speed. Why were the Palace of Nine Supremes' disciples training so desperately? It was like pulling up saplings to help them grow. Could they achieve anything in the long run? Will there really be no problem if we continue to train like this? Xiao Wui pulled back Hu Xiaofan, who was supervising the work, fiercely. Hu Xiaofan chuckled. Uncle Master Xiao, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth can't be replenished in the secular land. It's rare to have enough spiritual qi to nourish the body all the time. Cultivating blindly will inevitably damage one's foundation. More haste, less speed. However, does the Palace of Nine Supremes need to consider this? Do you think there's any possibility that the spiritual qi can't be replenished? As long as one doesn't die from cultivating, he can come back to life no matter what. I trained this way back then, so I think my foundation is solid. These kids are luckier than I am, and the spiritual qi now is even better than when they were in the residence of Nine Supremes. How can there be any accidents? He left after he finished, continuing to supervise the work. Xiao Wui and Lang Fantian blushed. They had actually been taught a lesson by a junior? However, what he said made sense. The spiritual qi in the Palace of Nine Supremes was so thick that spiritual qi could be liquefied almost everywhere. Spiritual energy circulated as one breathed in and out. Under such an atmosphere, as long as one did not die, any injury could be healed swiftly. The so-called hidden injuries of the physical body did not exist at all. This was bullying others with the sex advantage. There was nothing more to say. There's a reason why the residence of Nine Supremes could rise to where it is now. Xiao Wui sighed. What's the use of lamenting about it? We're part of the Palace of Nine Supremes now. We should work harder. Otherwise, we won't have any dignity left if these kids catch up to us. It'll be so embarrassing. Lang Fantian nodded in agreement. By the 5th day, dozens of disciples had reached a bottleneck in their cultivation base. They bade farewell to the school and left to train in the martial world. The next day, hundreds more disciples stepped out of the school. By the 10th day, the residence of Nine Supremes had sent out 12,000 disciples. By the evening of the 11th day, the last batch of 3,000 disciples had been sent out. They've all been sent out. Xiao Wui mused. How is the Palace of Nine Supremes training disciples? It's like rearing eagles. Another day later, Majordomo Qian, who rarely left the residence of Nine Supremes, led the business disciples down the mountain in a grand fashion to reorganize the residence of Nine Supremes' trade routes. Ji Lingxi watched Chen Duoduo leave with a deep frown, deep in thought. Beside her, Gu Chaoyang watched the departing silhouette and said softly, Madam, Majordomo Qian's departure this time, without the help of a benefactor, he'll definitely die. Ji Lingxi turned abruptly. What do you mean? Gu Chaoyang had reunited with Ji Lingxi not long after he arrived in the Bound of Universe and helped her build the residence of Nine Supremes. He had been dormant for a long time, so few people knew about the title of Heaven Teller. Even Yun Yang had almost forgotten about it. This elder brother's greatest skill was to predict a person's fortune and misfortune within 100 years. If it were not for this skill, how could he have written all the rankings in the Bound of Universe without being questioned? To Majordomo Qian, all 4 directions are dead ends. Gu Chaoyang sighed. With a frown, Ji Lingxi said, Calculate again. Gu Chaoyang calculated with his fingers for a moment and said in surprise, It's a close call. Am I making a fuss? As he spoke, he wore a funny smile. Ji Lingxi smiled and turned into a cloud, chasing after Chen Duoduo. When she asked Gu Chaoyang to calculate again, she was already thinking of rushing to escort Chen Duoduo. When Gu Chaoyang calculated again, it turned from a dead end to a close call, turning misfortune into a blessing. It was just a thought. A single variable was already a world of difference, a reversal of life and death. 15,000 disciples were sent out at once, leaving the residence of Nine Supremes with less than 3,000 disciples. Among the demiurge flawed 10, other than Kong Luoyue who was on duty, the other 9 had gone to the martial world a step earlier than the other disciples. Yun Xiuxin and the other disciples who had left the earliest were long gone, probably tens of thousands of miles away by now, As the Palace of Nine Supremes disciples ventured into the world, the Bound of Universe's martial world was plunged into chaos. All sorts of challenges, sparring, and confrontations came one after another. The unluckiest ones were none other than the crooked sects and their disciples with a bad reputation. Countless people with evil intentions met with disaster as well. This time, the residents of Nine Supremes had almost turned out in full force. These people were, of course, the first unlucky ones to bear the brunt. Starting from the periphery of the residents of Nine Supremes, the disciples stretched out in a radial pattern. It was an unstoppable and unreasonable push. After some sects had been flattened, a few batches of the Palace of Nine Supremes disciples had descended on the front lines to finish them off. The saying of first come, first served was undeniable here. Those who were fast would get what they wanted, but those who were slow did not know that there were already those who were fast in front of them. Just like that, even if there were any fish that had slipped through the net, they were all caught clean over and over again. In the process of the Palace of Nine Supremes disciples' baptism in the martial world, the most unlucky one was the Chen family. Every disciple of the residents of Nine Supremes knew that the Chen family was the great enemy of Majordomo Chen Duo. There was a blood feud between the two and it was difficult for them to coexist. Majordomo Chen had been persecuted by this Chen family, which was why he had founded the residents of Nine Supremes with his master, the sect leader. They had to avenge Uncle Master Chen. As a result, wherever the Palace of Nine Supremes disciples ran into the Chen family's businesses, trade routes, shops and merchants, none of them were spared. Moreover, they were repeatedly harassed again and again. The Palace of Nine Supremes had merged the original strength of the General Commerce League, and its power had expanded again. It had set up shop in every city it passed and used every means possible to occupy the Chen family's living space. It was almost not a case of losing 800 men and injuring 1,000 of the enemy, but 3,000 men and 800 of the enemy. You have a Saint Emperor in this city? Alright, let's send a Supreme Saint to crush them. What? This city is bigger and has a population of tens of millions, and the Chen family has set up 2 Supreme Saints here? Alright, let's send a Supreme Saint from the residents of Nine Supremes to crush them. What? You want to reason with us? Reason my ass. We're doing business seriously. What's the point of talking to you about logic? Why do you want to fight? Good. I've been looking forward to it for a long time. In just a month and a half, the Chen family had been defeated in half of the continent. The 3,000 men of the Palace of Nine Supremes were fine, but the 800 men of the Chen family had been seriously injured. Urgent letters from all over the country flew to the headquarters like snowflakes. Every letter had the same meaning: I can't hold on any longer. The Chen clan was badly battered and at a loss of what to do. The Palace of Nine Supremes followed a principle: we only occupied the market. We would never be the first to kill, let alone injure. In spite of this, the Palace of Nine Supremes' business model was built on the foundation of disregarding costs. It forcefully intervened in the local business, using the price war as the vanguard. In addition, the Palace of Nine Supremes had already won the hearts of the people. Their products were of high quality and low price, so there was no need to worry about sales. Every shop of the Chen family was deserted. Naturally, they would follow the General Commerce League's footsteps. In the later stages of the price war, public opinion was rife. The Chen family, an old merchant family, intended to dominate the Bound of Universe's business, to expel the Palace of Nine Supremes from the business world, and to suppress all of Lord Supreme Cloud's businesses. It was obvious that they were targeting the continent's heroes. For a moment, the people were seething with resentment. If it were any other force, the Chen family would only need to retaliate by waging a similar war of public opinion and using some other tactics. However, against the Palace of Nine Supremes, they were at their wits' end. The Palace of Nine Supremes had an advantage that their previous opponents did not have: the public's will, the people's foundation, and the people's hearts. Secondly, the Palace of Nine Supremes was a rising star. With Supreme Cloud's reputation, it naturally gave the people a sense of closeness and belonging. As for the Chen family, they had dominated the world's business for tens of thousands of years. No matter how friendly they were, their hands had long been stained with blood. In this world, there were many who had grudges against the Chen family, and there were countless merchants who had gone bankrupt because of the Chen family. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the people's resentment had completely erupted. The people and martial artists of the Bound of Universe had the same attitude towards this matter. The King Chen family had earned our money for tens of thousands of years. You've long been number one in the world, Yet you're still trying to bully the Bound of Universe's heroes. We won't believe it no matter what you say. It's wrong of you to suppress Lord Supreme Cloud, but it's wrong of you to target the Palace of Nine Supremes. Do you believe that the Qin family has suffered a loss and been suppressed by the Palace of Nine Supremes? Whoever believes it is an idiot. It's been so many years, who doesn't know what the Qin family is like? Isn't that right? How can the Qin family be bullied? They're obviously anxious because they can't earn our money. Shameless Qin family. They're too shameless. This is insane. It's infuriating. Even if they've been bullied by the Palace of Nine Supremes and suffered a little loss, so what? Isn't that what they should do? The Palace of Nine Supremes, Lord Supreme Cloud has shed his blood and risked his life for the Bound of Universe. Can't you just take it as a tribute to the continent? You're right. Compared to a certain family that doesn't know how to be grateful, we're more willing to let the Palace of Nine Supremes earn our money. At least, Lord Supreme Cloud has truly protected us. If it wasn't for the Qin family, would I have been so poor? Now the Qin family is being bullied? Well done. The Palace of Nine Supremes' influence grew stronger and stronger, crossing the border like a rolling snowball, crushing everything in its path. The Qin family was a large family. Although they would not be hurt in the short term, it would be hard to say in the long run. However, the Qin family had tens of thousands of years of history. No one could say for sure who would win this battle. The Qin family's higher-ups made a swift decision. Drag it out with them. Wage a price war. Let's see who can outlast the other. The Qin family has hundreds of thousands of years of history. I don't believe we can't beat the Palace of Nine Supremes, a newly established sect that has only been around for a few years. The Qin family had absolute confidence in their wealth and heritage. The world's #1 financial magnate. The weight of these 6 words was not something that ordinary people dared to dream of. If the Palace of Nine Supremes wanted to fight, they would fight with them to the end. Let's see who would be the first to go bankrupt. The Qin family had used this tactic to defeat countless opponents over the years. How could the Palace of Nine Supremes be an exception? The Qin family was preparing enthusiastically, waiting to see the day when the Palace of Nine Supremes could no longer hold on. Therefore, within the boundaries of the entire Bound of Universe, the forces from both sides began a vigorous commercial war. It was like a raging fire that was about to erupt. At the same time, Qian Duoduo and his entourage were plagued with mishaps. No matter where they went, there were always groups of assassins coming to kill them. Moreover, they could not catch any of them alive. All the assassins were men of sacrifice, committing suicide without hesitation once they saw that something was amiss. Occasionally their identities were found, but they had nothing to do with the Qin family. They belonged to various assassin organizations. Moreover, the combat strength of the assassins was getting higher and higher. Everyone knew that the Qin family must have hired the assassins, but they could not find any incriminating evidence at all. After a few days, many of Qian Duoduo's guards had been injured. Fortunately, Lin Xiaoro and Bai Yexing, 2 of the top 10 disciples of the residents of Nine Supremes, arrived at this time and joined the guard team, temporarily stabilizing the situation. However, the enemy's attack did not stop because of the arrival of Lin Xiaoro and Bai Yexing. Instead, it grew fiercer and fiercer. Although Ji Lingxi had been following them secretly, she did not make a move. Given the current situation, there was no need for her to do anything. She wanted to see how much trouble the enemy could stir up. Of course, Ji Lingxi did not do nothing. Orders were sent out in the midst of countless assassinations, exposing the assassin organizations they belonged to. Therefore, they became the targets of the Palace of Nine Supremes' traveling disciples. The Palace of Nine Supremes' purpose was obvious. Did you not accept the commission to kill my people? No problem, as long as you have the ability to withstand the Palace of Nine Supremes' counterattack. The momentum grew stronger and stronger. Inside the Qin family, Chen Xingjin was so anxious that his lips were blistering. I think this should stop. It's no longer a matter of killing Qian Duoduo, it's a matter of the continuation of the family. Whether we can kill Qian Duoduo now or not, it won't make a difference. It will only cause the Palace of Nine Supremes to retaliate. It was Chen Xingjin who had decided to eliminate Qian Duoduo, but now that he had come out of the Palace of Nine Supremes and learned more about the palace's terrifying power, the idea had completely disappeared. What replaced it was how to please the Palace of Nine Supremes and how to keep the family alive. However, the Council of Elders formed by the Qian family's old ancestors did not agree with this. Qian Duoduo is the root of our opposition. As long as Qian Duoduo is dead, all the problems will be solved. The reason the Palace of Nine Supremes is fighting with us is because of Qian Duoduo. As long as Chen Duoduo is dead, no one will be willing to pay such a high price for a dead man. What we have to do is to continue dragging it out and wear it out until the Palace of Nine Supremes is penniless. At the same time we can send someone to kill Chen Duoduo. This is the fundamental solution to the problem. When enemies meet on a narrow path, the brave one wins. Tens of thousands of years of confidence had made the Chen family look down on everyone. How could they admit defeat without witnessing the terror of the Palace of Nine Supremes with their own eyes? The Chen family's belief of invincibility would not crumble so easily. Chen Xingjin was so anxious that he was about to fall ill. He argued with reason, but the Council of Elders did not change its decision. Even when Chen Xingjin used his authority as the family leader, it was still rejected. Countless higher-ups of the Chen family were extremely dissatisfied with this family leader. How could such a weak patriarch lead the entire family down the road? Don't worry, family leader. The wealth that the Chen family has accumulated for 100,000 years is the best in the bound of universe. Even if we hurt others with our wealth and squander without considering the cost and consequences, it will take at least a few hundred years to exhaust all of it. No force in the bound of universe can withstand it. I'm afraid even the 4 heavenly palaces can't compete with us in terms of wealth, let alone the residents of Nine Supremes, a newly established sect. But if we take a step back, we'll be defeated. We'll be defeated like a landslide. That's the real end. The market is the lifeline of the Chen family. We must guard it. Even if both sides suffer, there's still room for us to make a comeback. Chen Xingjin was filled with melancholy. You're right. How can I not know that our wealth is so deep that we can exhaust any force in this world? But the Palace of Nine Supremes is very different. It's unfathomable. The Li family and the Situ family have already said that they can't fight back. Can the Chen family really fight back? On the other side, Chen Duoduo completely ignored the life-threatening crisis he was in, pushing the price war non-stop to seize the market. On the other hand, he spent large sums of money to create public opinion. Chen Duoduo was also very confident about this battle. Although the Chen family was known as a 10,000-year-old family and a financial magnate, it depended on who it was compared to. Chen Duoduo had carefully calculated the resources Yun Yang had given him when he came back from the demon clan. He confirmed that with his current spending pattern, he might not be able to finish spending it even if he spent another 1,000 years. Moreover, he had many backup plans. The people's hearts were all in his favor. There was no reason for him to fail this battle. If the stalemate continued for a while and further depleted the Chen family's financial resources, he only needed to release a batch of weapons that the Palace of Nine Supremes had eliminated and cooperate with the Li family, a family of weaponsmiths. This alone could make the Chen family miserable. If he still could not deal with the Chen family, he would release a batch of medicinal pills and deal another heavy blow. This battle was imperative and they were bound to win. As long as they won, the Palace of Nine Supremes could monopolize 70% of the entire commercial market. Even if there were any losses, they could make up for it. This is a battle of forces. We'll fight to the end. There's no turning back. Chen Duoduo's position was clear. His original intention of starting this battle was not for revenge. It was just a normal commercial war. It was the same no matter who he fought with. However, they had to fight this battle and they had to win it. A commercial war was just a commercial war. In a commercial competition, each person had their own unique tactics, nothing else. This was the rule of the Palace of Nine Supremes. However, for a few months, the Chen family's headquarters had been fighting a commercial war obediently, but they had hired countless assassins in the dark. It was truly infuriating. From the Chen family's perspective, as long as there was no solid evidence, the Palace of Nine Supremes could do nothing no matter how powerful it was. It was only the assassin organizations that were unlucky. The truth was as such. Countless assassin organizations that worked as cashiers had been unlucky because of the battle between these two families. It was just a very ordinary job of collecting money, but it had caused them a lot of trouble and there was even a follow-up hunt. More and more assassin organizations were complaining and wailing. The assassin organizations were found by the Chen family from bottom to top, and then the residents of Nine Supremes followed the trail. In just 2 months, 7 assassin organizations that had been notorious in the bound of universe for a long time had disappeared from the continent. The manpower of the residents of Nine Supremes, the General Commerce League, and the manpower of the Phoenix Cry sect had formed a huge net in the entire bound of universe. Once an assassin made his move, there was no way he could escape. Unless he could not catch him alive, as long as he was caught alive, he could pry his mouth open and ask for the name of the organization he belonged to. Once the organization's name was revealed, it meant the arrival of destruction. No matter how well those organizations hid, they would only end up being found out. As long as their tails were caught, the entire organization could not escape the fate of destruction. What was worse was that assassin organizations were a legitimate business in the bound of universe. When there was business, as long as the buyer could afford the price, they would naturally make their move. Unfortunately, the Chen family was too rich. No matter how high the price was, it could not stop their desire to buy assassins. Your price is too high. Fine, I'll double the price you raised. I just want to see Chen Duo dead. Then, Chen Duo would basically calculate the current income and expenditure every few days to confirm the profit and loss. He had written for a day more than 10,000 words. He really did not want to divide it into chapters, so he wanted to post it together after he was done. He did not expect that his head would explode until now. This chapter has 10,000 words. Chapter 14-15. In the past few days, we've lost 213 million low-grade spiritual jade pieces in the price war, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. After that, we wiped out an assassin organization and gained a total of 1.3 billion low-grade spiritual jade pieces, and other materials. The total value is no less than 2 billion, which is a slight surplus. This half a month. In the past 3 months, the price war has been going on, and we've lost a total of 10 billion low-grade spiritual jades. We've eliminated 13 assassination organizations, and we've seized a total of 156 billion low-grade spiritual jades. This can be considered a small harvest. Chen Duo clicked his tongue in wonder. If this business could go on for a long time, what was the point of doing business? If we don't care about the long-term benefits. To be honest, the current mode of operation is the fastest way to make money. Now I finally understand why Big Brother wanted to transform into the raiders of all but God back then. It's really a golden belt of murder and arson. It's really the fastest profit-making model. Bai Yexing laughed like he deserved a beating. Uncle Master Chen's eyes are sharp, and you can see right through to the crux of the matter. The Chen family spent a lot of money to hire the assassins, and then we killed the assassins. Not only did the Chen family's commission fall through, but we also pocketed all the savings of the entire assassin organization. The Chen family's money became ours. How nice. This business is indeed very profitable. If I don't care about the risks, it would be great if I could come here every day. Everyone laughed. Even the stewards and shopkeepers, who were covered in wounds and wrapped like mummies, were laughing so hard that they twitched. 2 of them even pulled at their wounds because they laughed too hard, and before they could finish laughing they began to cry out in pain. However, if there are more assassin organizations that accept the Chen clan's commission, I'm afraid that they will really have to send out their top forces. Quite a few Saint Venerables have already died in our hands. Will there be a Saint Monarch attacking next? If a Saint Monarch really comes to attack, we won't be able to stop them with our strength. Chen Duo was a little worried about this. It doesn't matter. Bai Yexing laughed and said, I'm just afraid that everyone will be too confident and not panic, so sure that the other party won't dare to attack. In fact, you don't know that 2 Uncle Masters have been following us all the time. With their help, what accident can happen? Everyone was relieved when they heard that. It turned out that with such a strong helper by his side, there was really nothing to be afraid of. What they did not know, however, was that even with Kong Luoyue and Shibuya of the Demiurge Flawed 10 secretly helping them, there were more than just 1 or 2 powerhouses in the world. At the very least, the Demiurge Flawed 10 who had ascended to the Saint Monarch level were not guaranteed to be safe. Kong Luoyue and Shibuya's protection in the dark was a set plan. In other words, in Gu Chaoyang's divination, even with their protection, Chen Duo would still face death on all sides. It was only when Ji Lingxi intervened that it was considered a change in fate. Other than Ji Lingxi herself, no one else knew about the fact that Ji Lingxi had been following them all this while. At this moment, she was like a specter that silently followed him all the way. She was extremely close, yet she never made a move and merely waited for an opportunity to strike. Even when there were times when the situation was critical, when people on her side were injured or even killed, she still didn't help. A little impatience would spoil great plans. She needed to continue waiting for the strike that her opponent was most confident in to arrive. The most lethal strike would be the turning point of this business war. She watched the battle calmly, watched the blood and watched the deaths calmly, unwilling to alert the enemy recklessly. Once she was exposed prematurely, Chen Duo would definitely die if the Chen family planned to plot against her, based on the Chen family's deep foundation. Chen Duo's business war and bloody battle continued. On the other hand, due to too many assassins being killed, many assassin organizations were uprooted. No matter how strict the assassin organizations were with rules and bottom lines, such a situation still struck fear into their hearts. Many assassin organizations closed their doors and no longer took on jobs. No matter how rich, resourceful, and well-connected you are, I can stop taking on your business if I stop doing the assassin business, right? Boss, are we going to do the Chen family's commission? The price has increased now. One head, 5 million. Chen was head, 100 million. What a grand gesture. Have you been blinded by this grand gesture, little brat? Why don't you think about it? Do you have the life to enjoy such a huge sum of money? You have to be alive to enjoy the money? You're courting death if you don't look at the person, the matter, and the mission. You've lived enough, but your father hasn't. Cough, cough. What are you waiting for? Get out of here. The Chen family's commission? I'm not doing it. Boss, it's against the rules if you don't take on the case. They don't lack money. As long as it's done and there's no haggling, the price is not a problem. Your father won't do it no matter how much money it costs. So what if it's against the rules? Not only will your father not do it, but I'll also leave this place immediately. Your father has decided not to be an assassin anymore. How can it be against the rules? Pack up quickly, it's not safe anymore. Boss, why are you doing this? We've already compromised as much as we can by not doing business. Do you think the Palace of Nine Supremes will come after us? What do you know? The Palace of Nine Supremes can't come for revenge, but they can come to suppress the bandits. I really don't know if you don't have a brain, or if there's mold growing in your brain, idiot. Then retreat? Retreat immediately. Retreat as fast as you can. Don't take what you can't take away in time. Leave everything here. Staying alive is our top priority now. All right. The Chen family's commission is here. Scram. What grudge do I have against you? There were those who refused to do it, but there were also those who were tempted by the money and wanted to take a gamble. After all, the price offered by the Chen family was tempting. Some of the more powerful assassin organizations accepted the mission after some consideration. Once they accepted the mission, they would, of course, immediately send their men to carry out the mission to kill Chen Duo. Chaos. His eyes were filled with chaos. Everywhere was chaos. The Palace of Nine Supremes' loot was so plentiful that their spatial rings were not enough, so they switched to using large carriages. As long as they planted the Palace of Nine Supremes' flag and sent someone to escort them along the way, the carriages would depart and return to the Palace of Nine Supremes' home. Perhaps it was too casual and too ostentatious, it finally led to an interlude. When a large carriage passed by the 13 stockade villages of Black Wind Ridge, tens of thousands of robbers had occupied the place. Relying on their numbers and strength, they had mobilized their men to rob the Palace of Nine Supreme supply carriages. The disciple who escorted them was very conspicuous. He did not choose to fight them head-on, but turned and left without a word. On this night, thousands of Royal Saint cultivators arrived. Upon closer inspection, there were 40 to 50 Supreme Saint experts holding the line. The formidable lineup attacked the Black Wind Ridge with the momentum of destroying the mountain and breaking the prison. The 13 stockade villages of Black Wind Ridge, which had been famous for a time, were destroyed just like that, razed to the ground overnight. It shook the world. Thinking of the Palace of Nine Supremes' current status and strength, everyone felt that this was inevitable. On one hand, the 13 stockade villages of Black Wind Ridge were committing suicide. On the other hand, they might have failed to investigate the background of the stolen carriages beforehand. However, what was truly unexpected was that the Palace of Nine Supremes' disciple who had abandoned the carriages and fled was not punished. Instead, he was rewarded. Youngest junior brother, you did well. It goes without saying that you judged the situation and acted only after planning, luring the snake out of its hole. It was brilliant. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any excuse to attack them. We've gained a lot this time. Wait for your reward when we return to the sect. Thank you, senior brother, for your guidance. The conversation, which was filled with an inexplicable meaning, spread out. For a moment, the robbers in the mountains were as silent as cicadas in winter. When they saw the Palace of Nine Supremes' carriages from afar, they immediately retreated, not daring to act rashly. Some of the robbers had even moved away, tens of thousands of miles away to make a living. Although it was dangerous to wander in an unfamiliar place, it was still safer than staying here. At least there was no risk of losing their lives. If they were caught by the Palace of Nine Supremes, it would be a disaster in the blink of an eye. Then, would the brothers reunite in another world with their missing limbs and heads? In the following period of time, basically everything was progressing steadily and step by step. Teams of the Palace of Nine Supremes disciples came out to train, to complete the missions given by the sect, to exchange what they had gained from their training in the outside world for contribution points to the sect, or to challenge famous cultivators from all over the world to hone their cultivation base and combat strength. Then they would go back to digest the results. Everything was carried out in an orderly and well-organized manner. Every morning when they woke up, the Palace of Nine Supremes' ability would improve compared to the day before. This behemoth of tens of thousands of people was advancing towards greater heights at an astounding speed. The little fellows below fiercely advanced, catching up as if they were flying. Those who were originally at the front naturally had to speed up their own pace, fearing that they would really be caught up. Especially the first 100 first-generation disciples at the very front, they cultivated to the point where their lives were almost on the line. In their minds, if they were really caught up, they would rather die of exhaustion. At that time it would be too shameful. Sure, Wuchen and the others were used to being poor in the past. Even though the supply of resources was never lacking, they still cherished every opportunity to cultivate and were not worried that their disciples would catch up to them. This was because they were more hardworking than their disciples. In this way, however, the original higher-ups of the Phoenix Cry sect and the General Commerce League felt insecure and were in a delicate and somewhat awkward position. They were people who had cultivated for thousands of years, or even tens of thousands of years. They also had the title of teachers. If they were caught up by the younger disciples, it would be too humiliating. How could they continue living? However, the habits of life and cultivation that had been cultivated for thousands of years were difficult to change in the end. Even if they wanted to change it, it was difficult to do so. During this period of time, these people could be said to be suffering unspeakably, and they felt that everything was wrong. I've finally become a higher-up of the Gold Celestial Luck Banner, but I find that I'm even more miserable than when I was a new disciple. I know I have to work hard, but I don't know how to do it. I'm working twice as hard for half the result. Gan Tianyan and Ping Jinyue complained as they practiced, drenched in sweat. We're not bad. Elder Li and the others were beaten up when they sparred with Hu Xiaofan a few days ago. Elder Li, Elder Wang, Junior Sister Ning, and the others have been too embarrassed to come out for a few days. They've been cultivating with all their might, trying to improve themselves. Ping Jinyue smiled bitterly. I knew that the aptitude of the disciples of the residents of Nine Supremes was not worth mentioning, but I didn't expect the top 10 first-generation disciples to be so abnormal. Gan Tianyan sighed as well. I'm afraid they'll catch up to me soon. The most carefree person now is Elder Wei. He's completely given up. He's been defeated by the disciples one after another, but he suddenly realized that he's not suitable for cultivation and applied to look at the alchemy room. He's been trampled by the young disciples to the point where he's lost all his confidence. What can he do if he doesn't think of a way out? What else is there to say? The eldest disciple of the Phoenix Cry sect was sent flying by a little girl who's only 9 years old. Now he's starting to doubt his life, and his future is bleak. But you're not as good as the others, so who can you blame? The saying that the strong are respected is especially applicable among the younger disciples of the residents of Nine Supremes. The so-called geniuses, talents, and outstanding talents, all titles are meaningless. Only by improving one's cultivation base and being the best can one be respected. That's right. After a while, Ping Jianyue sighed softly again. In the past, we've always been envious of the disciples with upper-class celestial luck banners and gold celestial luck banners who are rich in resources and spiritual energy. Only now do we know how difficult it is to gain a foothold in such a sect. The more talented the geniuses are, the more we have to cultivate with all our might so that we won't fall behind the others. There's no time to breathe at all, and one step behind means many steps behind. It's hard to change one's mistakes. We sisters have been relieved of the heavy responsibility of being in charge of the sect. Firstly, we want to avoid arousing suspicion, and secondly, we want to adjust our mood. We've wanted to go on a sightseeing trip, have some tea, chat, and even drink some wine to enjoy life. But now, even our conversation has to be carried out in the midst of sparring. How can we talk and enjoy life? Gan Tianyan sighed. Ping Jinyue sighed as well. However, there was nothing she could do about it. Since they had already entered the Palace of Nine Supremes, they had to have both rights and obligations. Everyone was working hard. If they did not work hard, they would be left behind no matter how talented they were. They were the higher-ups of the sect, so they were treated well and had no one to provoke them. However, the others were beaten down every day, constantly lamenting the precarious situation they were in. The disciples who originally belonged to the residence of 9 Supremes were even more energetic, each of them cultivating with all their might as if they were on steroids. Even the usual sparring sessions were fought with their lives on the line. Although the sects had merged, the junior disciples of the Palace of 9 Supremes were still divided into 4 competing groups. Among them, the weakest were the disciples who originally belonged to the General Commerce League, followed by the Phoenix Cry sect, and then the residents of 9 Supremes. As for the most competitive group, the disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes were undeniably the strongest. Although these 4 competing groups appeared to be harmonious and courteous on the surface, they were actually fighting fiercely in the dark. Under the urging of the top 100 disciples, the original disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes cultivated day and night, vowing to maintain the sense of superiority of the disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes. Whoever lost to a disciple from another competing group in a fight of the same level, no matter how talented, outstanding the other disciple was, he would no longer have a place among the original disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes. Washing clothes, washing socks, washing toilets, cleaning toilets, these were all his chores. Only when he fought back one day could he regain his original position. Yun Xiaoxin, the eldest senior sister of the Palace of 9 Supremes, was even more blatant in her threat. Whoever embarrasses me, All the disciples, including the 7 or 8-year-old children, were frightened out of their wits by this threat and kept quiet out of fear. It was so extreme that the disciples would rather destroy their foundation to win in the sparring sessions. It was simply sensational and soul-stirring. However, the higher-ups of the Palace of 9 Supremes did not interfere with this phenomenon at all. After all, under the nourishment of the unique spiritual qi in the Palace of 9 Supremes, even if their foundation was destroyed, they could recover in a short time. A sect like this, full of upward force, is a little extreme, but otherwise how could it be promoted to a dominant sect in such a short time? Ping Zhanyue said with some emotion when she was chatting with Xiao Wui one day. Compared to now, our original cultivation mode is like a child's game. It's not elegant at all. Xiao Wui heaved a long sigh and nodded heavily. Ling Xiaozue and Du Guqiu were the ones who liked such an atmosphere the most. Both of them were typical martial arts maniacs. According to Yun Yang, it was not unusual for these two fellows to train themselves to death. Their cultivation base was almost catching up to Shi Wuchen and Luo Dajiang. It was a testament to their rapid progress. After the spiritual qi storm, Yun Yang was not content with the status quo. He had been working hard to find an opportunity to break through to become a saint. Sparring, closed-door cultivation, fighting, he could clearly feel that he had touched that layer of window paper. He was even more aware that he could break through this layer of window paper with just a little more effort and become a saint-level expert immediately. However, he could not find the opportunity to break through no matter what. Yun Yang was extremely puzzled about this. It was on this day that Yun Yang grew increasingly agitated, unable to even meditate. He paced around the room with a frown on his face. After a long while he was still troubled, but he did not know where his problem lay. The more he did not know, the more agitated he became. The more anxious he was to find out what was wrong with him. Under the accumulation of negative emotions, the demons of his heart were born and the demonic test was upon him. The silhouettes of the 9 Supremes brothers who were masked kept appearing in his mind. Supreme Earth and Supreme Water's gazes were focused on him. Supreme Thunder was also looking at him. Supreme Flame and Supreme Blood were also looking at him. Supreme Wood, Supreme Gold, Supreme Wind, and all his brothers were watching him. The next moment Yun Xiaoyao, whom he had not seen for a long time, was also looking at him. What's going on? What's going on? Yun Yang paced around the room, unprecedentedly agitated. His movements now were completely controlled by his instincts. After a long while, Yun Yang thought to himself that since he could not cultivate, he might as well find a place to lie down and sleep. He would use a peaceful sleep to calm his current agitation. Very quickly he fell asleep. He fell into a deep sleep and entered the dreamland. However, in the dream, Yun Xiaoyao appeared in an even more animated state, his eyes filled with concern as he gazed at him. The next moment, the scene changed, turning into his brothers lying on the ground, bathed in blood. It was as if the impending death had come once again on Mount Tianxian. Yun Yang's thoughts raced, wanting to detonate himself to break the impending death. After all, to Yun Yang now, the impending death was no longer a threat and he could easily see through it. However, Yun Yang was shocked to realize that all of his powers, be it cultivation base, combat power, mystical qi, or endless divine art, could not be mobilized. It was as if he was inferior to an ordinary person. With a cry, Yunyang came to his senses. It was unbelievable that he could still have nightmares at his level of cultivation base. Touching his head, he realized that it was drenched in cold sweat. Everything, including the distraught he had been feeling these few days, was not supposed to be. It was as if something bad had happened or was happening right now. Shengguan Lingxiu came in like she was flying. Yunyang, what's wrong? Yunyang sat on the bed and thought for a while before murmuring, I want to go back and have a look. His voice was low and somewhat indistinct, filled with uncertainty. Somehow, after saying it, Yunyang felt relieved as if he had let go of something important. Yunyang made up his mind immediately and repeated, I want to go back and have a look. This time he said it resolutely and confidently. My wife has brought the whole family on a trip for 3 days. I haven't gone out in these 3 days. Besides, I haven't worn anything for 3 days. I feel so free walking back and forth without a stitch on. Other than wrapping myself in a bath towel when I came for takeout. I'm a little sloppy. I sleep on my side of the bed and switch to my wife's side when I'm drenched in sweat. I can only sleep in the middle tonight. These 3 days have taught me a truth, a man still needs a wife. Chapter 14:16. My house is on the top floor and I forgot to turn on the drain. I went to bed after updating the update. When I woke up today, my house was a mess. Even my stool was floating. My wife isn't home and something like this happened. I'm probably done for. She'll be back tomorrow. I'll continue working and take the day off. I am the Supreme is in trouble this time. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 14:17. Just one more day. Oh no. I don't even know what to do anymore. I'm done with I am the Supreme. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 14:18. He stood up immediately after he finished speaking. I'll go back with you. Shengguan Lingxiu did not ask anything and spoke on her own. I miss Grandma too. All right. Let's go then. With Yun Yang's current cultivation base, the barrier between the two realms was no longer an insurmountable barrier. He only needed to find a place that was close to the border between the two realms and travel between them. Coincidentally, Yun Yang knew such a place very well. The Land of God's Bones was exactly such a place. After making the arrangements, Yun Yang and Shengguan Lingxiu tore the space apart and left the Palace of 9 Supremes. On the way back, Yun Yang had been pondering a question. According to his cultivation base, he could have done it when he had ascended to the realm of a saint if he wanted to travel between the two realms. Why hadn't he done so yet? Probably what he was most afraid of wasn't a battle of life and death, nor was it a life-threatening crisis. What he was most afraid of was the memories that came back to him. The clouds passed by him leisurely. Yun Yang walked forward, his expression filled with sorrow and confusion. When can I revive all of you, reunite with all of you? Yun Xiaoyao, who had not seen this place for a long time, was sitting alone in the backyard of King Xiaoyao's residence. He sat quietly under the plum tree in the pavilion just like Yun Yang had done back then. There was a tea table in front of him, a pot of clear tea and a wisp of sandalwood fragrance. His expression was indifferent, devoid of sorrow or joy. Yun Xiaoyao basically sat here when he had nothing to do. When he was in the mood, he would make a couple of side dishes and drink by himself until midnight, or from midnight until dawn. As the unrivaled expert of Tianxian continent, there were very few things that were worthy of his attention. Naturally, he did not need to be as tired as he used to be, nor did he need to run all over the place. The empire of Yutong, which had unified the world and pacified the 4 seas, was in the stage of recuperation. Other than the northern grassland that was still slightly unstable and the occasional remnants of the newly conquered territories, the rest of the world was basically at peace. Therefore Yun Xiaoyao rarely went out these few years. Since he did not like socializing, did not like crowds, and hated to be disturbed by outsiders, the only thing he liked to do was to sit quietly in his own home and let the outside world change. Especially recently, Yun Xiaoyao had not even stepped out of his residence for the past 6 months. He hadn't even been to the palace for a long time. Even when the emperor occasionally came to visit, Yun Xiaoyao would only say a few words before falling silent, until the emperor left on his own accord. This situation had probably started since Yun Xiaoyao had a conflict with the emperor more than a year ago. Whenever the emperor came, Yun Xiaoyao would directly refuse to meet him. This repeated over and over again, and as time went by, His Majesty decided not to come anymore. Among the people in the imperial court, only old marshals like Qiu Jinhan would occasionally come over to sit quietly with Yun Xiaoyao for a while, but it was difficult for them to find a topic to talk about. They would leave after a short while, most of them adding a sigh when they parted. Lao Mei, who was serving at the side, sighed inwardly as well. The person who understood King Yun the most in this world was none other than this elder brother. He coldly watched as His Highness poured and drank by himself. His expression was distant and he did not say a word. This was because he knew that anything he said would be useless. His Highness missed his son, but no one could let him see his son who had already gone to another world. Therefore he did not say anything and only waited quietly. After all, no one knew when the stalemate in the Tianshan continent would be broken. Ever since Yun Yang had left the Tianshan continent and ascended to the upper realm, the emperor of the Empire of Yutong had appointed his grandson Yu Chengkuan as the heir to the throne. It had only been a year or two, but he had been continuously delegating power to his grandson. In the end, it was the grandson who was in charge of the empire. His Majesty the Emperor himself did not care much about matters anymore. It was obvious that this emperor, who had been busy his entire life, was getting old and wanted to rest. If it were not for Yu Chengkuan's young age, it would not have been rare for him to abdicate and become the overlord. However, it was at this time that a commotion arose. The divine religion of 9 supremes had suddenly sprung up among the people. Yutong's 9 supremes were renowned throughout the world. Yutong's supreme cloud was a legend of this world, no different from a living god. This religion borrowed Supreme Cloud's name and worshipped him as the highest form of belief. It expanded its disciples without restraint and covered the entire empire of Yutong's territory in just over half a year. What followed was a saying that the empire of Yutong's upper class was not happy to hear. The imperial power was bestowed by God. Without God there would be no royalty. Lord Supreme Cloud was God, the 9 Supremes Lords were God. The Empire of Yutong could only achieve its greatness because of Lord Supreme Cloud's unstinting support. From this, a theory was formed: the divine power was greater than the imperial power. This theory was quickly ingrained in the hearts of the people due to the 9 Supremes' many acts of saving the world. The battle between divine power and imperial power gradually began. There was no doubt that the 9 Supremes held supreme authority in the Empire of Yutong, or even the entire world. This was also the reason why the Empire of Yutong could stand tall despite being besieged from all sides. This was something that no one could deny. However, when the 9 Supremes were first founded, the 9 Supremes' leader, Supreme Earth, was the eldest prince of the Empire of Yutong. The 4 Supreme Supremes were Supreme Earth's wives, and the current Empire of Yutong's heir was their only bloodline. Yun Yang was also the only son of the Empire of Yutong's King Yun Xiaoyao. Therefore, it could be said that the 9 Supremes were founded to serve the Empire of Yutong. Even if the words were harsh, it was the truth. There were many changes later on. The 9 Supremes were wiped out in one day, leaving only Supreme Cloud, who propped up the crumbling Empire of Yutong with his own strength. Yun Yang, however, spared no effort in helping. Other than his patriotism and initial intention, it was also largely due to his friendship with the 9 Supremes. The only thing that was lacking was the divine power. Although Yun Yang, who eventually ascended to the upper realm, was already a living legend to the Tianshan continent, no one would believe it. In spite of this, no one would believe it, or rather, most of the people were unwilling to believe it. They were more willing to believe that the 9 Supremes Lords were deities who had descended to save the world and pacify Tianshan. It was not just limited to one family or one surname. After all, this was what the public wanted. As the top expert of the Empire of Yutong and even the entire Tianshan continent, Yun Xiaoyao was the direct and indirect party involved, be it for public or private reasons. Naturally, he would not pass his responsibility to the rest of the world in search of the sect of 9 Supremes leader. Unexpectedly, no matter how hard Yun Xiaoyao searched, he could not find him. Even when Yun Xiaoyao had mobilized the official forces, his personal friends and many other forces to intervene, it was still futile. Instead, it highlighted the mysterious level of the sect of 9 Supremes, which had already reached a terrifying level. Even Yun Xiaoyao was surprised by the situation. There must be something fishy about this. As the trend of the divine mandate of monarchy grew stronger, the imperial authority was unwilling to fall into disarray. It was only natural for it to rise up and fight back. The first thing it did was to destroy all of the 9 Supremes' temples within the boundaries of the continent and issue the edict. The 9 Supremes' contributions to the nation and its people were undeniable, but they were all Yutong royalty's subordinates. They had only gone through special training and possessed abilities that surpassed ordinary people. At the end of the day, however, they were only the royalty's subordinates. They were not some living legend or living deity. The appearance of this decision and notice enraged Yun Xiaoyao, who was searching for the sect of 9 Supremes' whereabouts. He stopped the operation immediately. He returned to the capital and met the emperor that very night, but the emperor was helpless about the matter. With the way things had developed, it was impossible for the sect of 9 Supremes to be allowed to escalate the matter. Otherwise, it would only be nurturing a tiger that would only invite trouble. After all, based on the current situation, the sect of 9 Supremes would probably conquer the entire world within a few years. When that time came, it would be hard to tell who would be in charge. How could the royalty sit and wait for death? Of course, they had to react actively. Sealing the deeds of the 9 Supremes and demolishing the temples, the royalty would then create public opinion in the entire continent to guide the people to be loyal and patriotic. This was the most effective and immediate solution. However, Yun Xiaoyao was resolutely against this method. That night, the two brothers parted on bad terms. The royals' actions were still arranged in an orderly manner, destroying temples and spreading public opinion. The 9 Supremes were only the royal family's generals and family warriors, and their words and opinions were rampant. Although the sect of 9 Supremes was trying its best to fight against the royals, no matter how mysterious it had just risen not too long ago after all. After losing its foundation, it was only a martial world force that was as scattered as sand. How could it compare to the power of a nation? Its momentum weakened bit by bit, gradually becoming less and less influential. Seeing that the momentum was good, the royalty immediately released a biographical book called The Legend of the 9 Supremes. It recorded the story of the 9 Supremes and the others being secretly selected by the royalty at the beginning. It involved tough training and layers of selection. Most of the 1,000 or so people were eliminated, leaving only 9 who were trained well. After that, they naturally began to receive orders from the royalty, going out to carry out missions, rushing thousands of miles to aid the battlefield, overturning the perilous situation. The missions were basically true events that everyone was familiar with. These past events were the meritorious deeds of the 9 Supremes in the past. They were all real and not faked. The so-called path of growth, although it was a conjecture, was not far from reality. However, because of the addition of the royalty to coordinate and arrange missions and command the war, the 9 Supremes' standpoint had changed drastically. As the legend of the 9 Supremes was widely spread throughout the nation, the original reputation of the 9 Supremes had inevitably fallen. Many people had a self-recognition epiphany, so this was it. The 9 Supremes were only ordered by the royalty. The truly formidable one was still Yutong's royalty. The 9 Supremes' role was significant, but it was only a god-making movement at the national level. Yutong's entire nation's power had molded the 9 Supremes into deities. Now that this matter was exposed, it was only because of the sect of 9 Supremes' appearance, intending to use these heroic deeds to disturb the people's hearts and threaten the nation's safety. The officials had only announced the truth to the public for safety's sake, thus letting the people know that the so-called 9 Supremes' protectors and all their actions were led and within the boundaries of what was normal. In the end, it was just the nation's soldiers carrying out their normal missions, nothing more. Now that the situation had developed to this stage, more than 90% of the 9 Supremes' glorious achievements had been erased. The 9 Supremes were no longer a human myth. Even the talk of heroes had gradually faded. What was more deeply rooted in the people's hearts was the national machine. At this point, the sect of 9 Supremes' momentum could be considered to have been completely stopped. However, the number of people who paid their respects to the 9 Supremes had also dwindled. It's just a few war machines. Actually, they're the same as you and me. We're all soldiers of the military. It's just that we have a different division of labor. Such comments were increasing in number. Looking back on the past, some of the wars that the 9 Supremes participated in back then were obviously laid on purpose. Otherwise, how could they have displayed their heroic power to turn the tide? It's a pity for the many soldiers who died. They shouldn't have died in the first place. A general's success is built on the bones of thousands. Sigh. If the 9 Supremes had gone a step earlier in that war back then, this old man's brothers wouldn't have died and this old man wouldn't have been crippled. So this is the truth, this is the truth. The change in the tide was getting more and more intense, gradually getting out of hand. The 9 Supremes slowly went from being revered by the people, existences that were akin to deities, to becoming a repulsive street. Curses were heard gradually. In the beginning, the curses would still be reprimanded, but as time went on, the number of people cursing increased unknowingly. The mentality of the people was actually very strange. When a person was worshipped as a hero by others and heard of their legends every day, even if they did not know them, even if they had never interacted with them, they would still praise them, respect them, and worship them. Others could not even curse them in front of them. However, if everyone else was cursing this person, then even if they did not understand, did not know anything about that person, it did not stop them from cursing him as well. Although they did not know anything, when they cursed, they could make everyone feel as if they knew all the inside information. Slowly, the 9 Supremes began to stink, especially Supreme Cloud. After all, he was the last of the 9 Supremes, the only survivor. More delusions, more malice, of course, had to be linked to him. Therefore, about a year and a half ago, the statue of Supreme Cloud that was erected in Tiantang Square, the last remaining statue of Supreme Cloud in the entire capital city, the last statue that was protected strictly by the military, could not withstand the tide-like anger of the people. Topple Supreme Cloud's statue. This despicable person has deceived us for so many years. It's him. In order to create his own legend, he caused countless innocent people to die in vain. Topple it. Topple it. We must topple it. Somehow the people surged into the square like a tidal wave, carrying hammers, sticks, axes. Countless people smashed the hundreds of feet tall statue of Supreme Cloud bit by bit, as if they were in a frenzy. Finally, it collapsed with a loud crash. Then the enraged people smashed the fallen statue into pieces. That day, Yun Xiaoyao, Qiu Jianhan, Leng Daoyin, Fang Qingtian, Old Mistress Shangguan, and the rest had all rushed to the scene, armed to the teeth. If they had wanted to stop or intervene, these hundreds of thousands of people would have been killed by Yun Xiaoyao right there and then. However, when he saw the inexplicably frenzied crowd, Yun Xiaoyao, who had the most reason to intervene, did not do so. He only glanced at Qiu Jianhan with a cold gaze. Qiu Jianhan shook his head, his white hair fluttering in the wind. Yun Xiaoyao then looked at Fang Qingtian and Leng Daoyin. Both of them shook their heads in shame and lowered their heads. Finally, he looked at old Mistress Shangguan, who snorted coldly and turned to leave. In the end, Yun Xiaoyao turned his icy gaze towards the imperial city. He watched coldly from the sidelines as the people surged in, watched as those with ulterior motives encouraged and shouted slogans, and then watched as the tens of thousands of people seethed, frenzied, and cursed. He watched as his son's statue was smashed into the ground with clanking sounds. He watched as the stone fragments on the statue flew in all directions. He watched as the statue helplessly fell to the ground without a care for its image. The violent impact caused the entire earth to tremble. From the beginning to the end, Yun Xiaoyao did not say a word. Even when he saw his son's statue being smashed into pieces, he only gritted his teeth, closed his eyes and turned to leave. His aura was icy cold. Fang Qingtian and the rest had wanted to talk to him and discuss things, but Yun Xiaoyao's unapproachable attitude ignored them and left, his expression indifferent. Forget about the sofa, the key was that there were so many floor-to-ceiling cabinets filled with blankets and mattresses. He had asked a few comrades to clean it for 2 days and on the surface there were signs of recovery, but the problem was that it had been raining continuously for the past few days, and there was no place to dry the blankets. His wife had returned home at 11:30 last night, but she was still discovered this morning. It was a long story. The people downstairs came looking for her, saying that our house was leaking and so was their ceiling. The ceiling was probably going to be destroyed. Oh my God. Chapter 14:19. Watching Yun Xiaoyao turn and leave without a word, Qiu Jianhan sighed in melancholy and turned to leave as well. Leng Daoyin and Fang Qingtian looked at each other, their hearts heavy. Old Mistress Shangguan chuckled coldly and stared at the rubble of Supreme Cloud's statue for a long time before she stomped her dragon-headed walking stick and left with a smirk. When the morning assembly came the next day, old Mistress Shangguan presented her report. She said that the world was at peace, the sea was clear, the rivers were clear, and the nations had come to pay their respects. There was no internal rebellion and no external war. The Shangguan family wished to resign from the title of a family of generals, relinquish all military authority, and return to their hometown, never to meddle in the affairs of the world again. She had even asked her grandchildren to send her back to her hometown to live out the rest of her life. The crown heir tried to persuade her to stay, but the old mistress was adamant. The crown heir had no choice but to comply. The moment the crown heir made his promise, Qiu Jinhan's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He mumbled unconsciously as if he wanted to say something, but not a word came out. His expression was filled with sorrow. Old Mistress Shangguan kowtowed to thank the emperor and left the hall, turning to leave. Until the old mistress disappeared from the hall's entrance, all the civil and military officials remained silent. Everyone knew clearly that an era had come to an end. Therefore, the Shangguan family of generals that had dominated the world for centuries and shocked the entire continent had disappeared from Yutong's military and Yutong's imperial court. The night was filled with stars, and the world's warriors respected the Shangguan. This phrase had become a legend, or perhaps the beginning of another lie. Everyone from the Shangguan clan moved quickly. They left all the gifts bestowed by the emperor in the courtyard of the old mansion, and kept them in the storehouse. They didn't take anything with them. The only things they took were the memorial tablets of their ancestors who had died in battle. The few young brothers of the Shangguan family, who had just begun to come into contact with the military and had just begun to build their reputation, resigned from the court along with their old ancestor. There were 2 who were unwilling to leave because of the crown heir's promise and relationship, but old Mistress Shangguan ordered them to break their legs and carry them away. On the day the Shangguan family of generals left the capital, outside the southern gate, Qiu Jianhan and the other military higher-ups had rushed to send them off, sighing. "Old madam, please take care of yourself. When you arrive, please let us know so that we can be at ease." Old Grand Commandant Fang Qingtian said with a trembling voice. "The world is fickle and cold. Everyone, you have a bright future ahead of you. There is no need to let the past linger in your hearts. Once we part ways today, we will never meet again." Old Mistress Shangguan's face was cold. She said indifferently, "I don't dare to tell anyone where I'm going to settle down. If the Shangguan family name ends here, how will I have the face to see my old man in the underworld? How will I have the face to see my ancestors in heaven?" As soon as old madam said this, everyone was silent for a long time. No one stepped forward. I used to think that what happened back then was just a coincidence, that it was only the work of those with ulterior motives. Now, it seems that there is no lack of people with ulterior motives. The family of generals is like that, and so is Supreme Cloud. From now on, the Shangguan family will be the Shangguan family. We will no longer be involved in the imperial court, nor will we be involved in the disputes of this world. We, the Shangguan family, are afraid that we won't be able to keep our last bit of reputation. Old Mistress Shangguan said faintly, "If we retreat now, we can probably retreat unscathed. If we wait for a few more days, perhaps the memorial tablets of the Shangguan family of generals will be overthrown. This old lady is afraid, truly afraid." Afraid. These 2 words rendered everyone speechless. The Shangguan family of generals that had dominated the world and intimidated the continent, the Shangguan family of generals that had never been afraid of blood and sacrifice, the Shangguan family of generals that had protected the empire of Yutong for centuries, were afraid. These 2 words were heart-wrenching. Everyone was speechless, not knowing what to say. Old Mistress Shangguan waved her hand. "Take care, everyone. We will never meet again. Please wait for a moment. King Yun Xiaoyao hasn't arrived yet. Old Mistress, it's best that you wait. After this farewell, I don't know when we won't meet again. It would be such a pity." Old Mistress Shangguan laughed and said sadly, "Yun Xiaoyao won't come. Why would he come?" Before her words echoed in the air, old Mistress Shangguan turned and left. The Shangguan family's carriage, escorted by 5,000 family warriors, left the capital's territory as if it was flying. It was so fast that it looked like there were countless beasts chasing after it. On the second night, Qiu Jianhan received news that the Shangguan family had disappeared mysteriously after turning into a forest. There were only thousands of warhorses left in the forest. Everyone from the Shangguan family of generals had vanished like they had evaporated from the world, leaving no trace behind. Qiu Jianhan's old tears streamed down his cheeks. "Old Marshal, we've discovered a troop that has been following the Shangguan family all the way." After discovering that the Shangguan family has disappeared, the troop has continued to search in the forest. Qiu Jianhan ordered fiercely with tears streaming down his cheeks, "Tear this troop and those who are related to them into pieces. All of them. Find out everyone's identity and execute their entire families. Annihilate their entire families." Old Grand Commandant Fang Qingtian submitted his resignation a few days later. "This old official is old. I fear that my days are numbered. I only wish to return to my roots, my soul to my homeland." Like how he treated a family of generals, the Crown Prince tried to persuade the old Grand Commandant to stay, but to no avail. In the end, he bestowed the title of Imperial Protector to the old Grand Commandant, a hereditary title, and approved his resignation. After the Shangguan family, old Grand Commandant Fang's family became the second noble family to disappear from the capital. After the old Grand Commandant resigned, Several hundred of the old Grand Commandant's disciples and soldiers left without saying goodbye, their whereabouts unknown. A group of up-and-coming talents quickly took over the positions. The situation was calm and did not cause the slightest ripple. Half a month later, Lung Daoyin's old injury relapsed and he was bedridden. The eldest son of the Lung family went to the palace to beg the imperial physician. After the physician examined him, he said that the old marshal did not have long to live. He had 10 more days at most. Lung Daoyin was bedridden, muttering every day, "Go home, go home." The Lung family submitted their farewell and sent the old marshal back to his homeland. His eldest son said that Ding Yu would return after 3 years, and the crown prince approved it. The entire Lung family left the capital then, their whereabouts unknown. A few months later, it was confirmed that the entire Lung family had not returned to their homeland. No one knew where they had gone. The border marshal, Sun Zihu, was assassinated one day when he was patrolling. 3,000 soldiers and 4 generals were assassinated along with him, shocking the entire nation. The Empire of Yutong's actual first marshal, Tai Zheng, suddenly roared after getting drunk one day, "Go and rest. Go and rest." It was on that night that the entire Tai family vanished, leaving only corpses strewn all over the ground. It was written with the words, "Your father is gone." According to investigations, these people were the royal spies that had been planted into the Tai family in recent years. No one was spared, all of them killed in Tai Zheng's residence. The crown prince was enraged, ordering the entire nation to capture Tai Zheng. A group of military generals were filled with righteous indignation, requesting for Tai Zheng's arrest. A few of them had led teams to capture Tai Zheng, but they had vanished like the ocean after leaving Yutong's capital city. The only old man left in the capital, old Marshal Qiu Jianhan, seemed to have gone senile with age. Every day he would order his guards to carry him to the city gate, wrapping himself in a thick marten coat as he stared into the distance. Watching the people going in and out of the city gate, he would tear up as he watched. He mumbled, his expression and actions filled with sorrow. However, no one could hear what he said clearly. The empire of Yutong that was once prosperous has finally come to this. Every day the old marshal felt as if his heart was being split into 8 pieces. "I want to see. I want to see." He roared, his words unclear, "I want to see how far you all are going to go." The human heart was treacherous. It had always been so, be it cultivators, the common people, or those in positions of power, it was the same. It was nothing more than that. Perhaps it was just like the saying went, "In this world it is fine if anyone is missing, but no one is indispensable." Yun Yang had ascended to the bound of universe and left Yutong alone, but Yutong was still at peace, ruling over the world and bringing peace to the universe. The Shangguan family of generals no longer interfered with the imperial court, but Yutong's military was still majestic. Even when Tai Zheng, Sun Zihu and Fu Baogua had left, the old marshals were nowhere to be seen, and the officials in the imperial court had been changed. Yutong was still Yutong. It was as if the world had not changed with the departure of these meritorious officials. It had lost its stability, its glory. Until now, most of the 9 Supremes' traces had been erased from this continent, but the world was still peaceful. There was no war. Even when small rebellions broke out occasionally, they would be over with a snap of a finger, hardly causing any trouble. At least, the lives of Yutong's people who were gradually getting used to peace and comfort were not affected. They were mostly talking about the heroes of the new generation. The biggest characteristic of humans was forgetfulness. Especially when it did not concern them, half a year was enough for them to forget everything, much less 5 or 6 years. Furthermore, there were new rumors that kept rising. Legends. Slowly there were many different opinions and all the events of the past were covered in layers of rumors and fog. Yun Xiaoyao watched everything unfold coldly from the sidelines. Until now he still could not believe that the child who had walked out of his home, the intelligent Bauer, the treasure that Yun Yang had protected with all his might, would actually do such a thing. He would rather believe that it was his royal brother Yuruns who had done it, that he was the mastermind behind it. If that was the case, perhaps he would still be heartbroken and disappointed, but at least he would not be hopeless. A year before Yun Yang left, he had sent Bauer to the palace. Including this year, Yun Yang had been gone for 7 years. Could such a drastic change happen in 7 years? What had caused such a change? Was it really that child? A year and a half ago, Supreme Cloud's statue had been toppled and smashed. That night, His Majesty came to Yun Xiaoyao's residence in plain clothes and sighed. Although I don't want to say it, nor do I want to admit it, that child is truly born to be an emperor. He is decisive in his actions and rarely hesitates, said His Majesty. Yun Xiaoyao did not say a word, remaining silent. Although his methods are too extreme and immature, he has gathered all the power in his hands after all. This is already the behavior of a qualified emperor. His Majesty's expression was complicated. If I'm not mistaken, when he's done cleansing the imperial court and the military and completely removed Supreme Cloud's influence, his last step will be to deal with me. Although I've given him the power to be the heir to the East Palace and let him be the heir to the throne, I'm not a threat to him at all, and I've even made it clear that I'll pass the throne to him when the time is right and everything is just a matter of time. He still won't be at ease when it comes to me. He's still very cautious. Even if I pass the throne to him now, it still won't be enough. Everything will only end when I die. Even if I give up all my power and abdicate the throne to him, I'll still be a threat to him as long as I'm alive. A threat can only be eliminated while it's still budding. Therefore he will definitely kill me. He must kill me. His Majesty smiled faintly as if he was not talking about himself but someone else's fate. So many of your old brothers have been slaughtered, banished, and imprisoned by your heir. Are you just going to watch it happen? Yun Xiaoyao finally spoke, and his first words were straight to the point. The succession of imperial power is inevitable, the emperor said. A new emperor brings his own courtiers. It's been the case since ancient times and it's the same now. I've done my best to preserve their lives and riches. This is the limit of what I can do. I can't give more than that. I can't afford to give them anything more. A monarch's centralization of power and his words are the law. This is the current trend. I think I've done a good job as emperor, but I'm compassionate and soft-hearted. It's hard for me to establish my authority, which is a great taboo for a monarch. This child is doing much better than I am now. As a loner, he should only have eyes for imperial power. He should be the only one above everyone else. Very good, very good. His Majesty's words had a strange ring to them. It seemed to be a sincere compliment, but at the same time, it seemed like he was expressing his inner mockery. I can kill him. Ever since that day I've wanted to kill him more than once, Yun Xiaoyao said quietly. His tone was as calm as still water, but it was laced with murderous intent. Even if I really die, you can't kill him, the emperor said faintly. Not only is he a qualified candidate, he's also the only heir to the throne. From ancient times until now, this continent has never been truly unified. Perhaps it can be done in his hands. His Majesty even had some expectations for this. This was his lifelong dream. Yun Xiaoyao remained silent, but his expression grew colder. Xiaoyao, you should give up too. If you don't give up, if you don't leave, sooner or later, he'll make a move on you. His Majesty chuckled bitterly. No one in this world can stop you, Chen Kuan now. Yun Xiaoyao said coldly, I only need a swing of my sword to kill him. His Majesty chuckled bitterly. Then why don't you kill him? Yun Xiaoyao gritted his teeth. His Majesty sighed softly. Now, other than Yun Yang descending from the sky and being able to intimidate him and change the situation, no one else has this possibility. It's been almost 7 years since Yun Yang left. There's no news at all. Separated by 2 worlds, it's easy to go up but difficult to come down. Perhaps he'll return one day, but we might not be able to see it because who knows how many years later that will be. Xiaoyao, just like your name, how about going free and unfettered? His Majesty said softly, at least for now, I can still ensure your freedom for the rest of your life. Yun Xiaoyao sneered. Lowering his gaze, he raised his teacup. Send the guest off. Ever since His Majesty left the residence of Yun that day, Yun Xiaoyao had never seen him again. Even when he came, Yun Xiaoyao still refused to meet him. Even when they met, he still did not say a word. It was obvious. You're waiting for death. If you want to wait for death, it's all your business. Don't let me know, I don't want to know. Yun Xiaoyao knew that the emperor's body was already failing. Yun Yang had cured him after he was poisoned, but it had also left a lingering illness. Now he would faint whenever he was overworked and his body was getting thinner by the day. His once muscular body was now less than 80 kgs, only skin and bones were left. This was also the reason why the emperor could not wait to delegate his authority. He was afraid that he would die too quickly, and his grandson would not be able to learn in time. Now, however, it seemed that he had learned too quickly. It had been raining heavily for 5 consecutive days. Chapter 1420. With the passage of time, batch after batch of civil and military officials gradually faded out of the imperial court. Some resigned, some went into seclusion, A handful of those who were reluctant to leave their positions and power were quietly stripped of their positions. Some were transferred away and given an idle post, while some were charged with a crime and died. In short, most of the old officials were no more. I can't even see any familiar faces. The last time Qiu Jianhan came to the imperial court was 3 days ago. This was the only time he had come in this half a year, but he was shocked to realize that no one in the imperial court knew him anymore. Even His Majesty is happy to see this happen. Apart from surrendering, we can only protect ourselves. The world of Yutong is no longer ours. This was what Lung Daoyin said before he left. Old Qiu, you'd better get out of here while you still can. This is no longer our world. This was what old Fang said before he left. Teacher, it's not wise to sacrifice oneself to preserve one's usefulness. This was the secret letter that Tai Zheng had sent before he left. With King Yun's current cultivation base and the manpower, resources, and financial resources that he can mobilize, what force in this world can go against him? The only one who can hide from King Yun's eyes and ears is Yutong's imperial family. The so-called change in the School of Nine Supremes is only a self-directed farce by the imperial family. These were the words that old Mistress Shangguan had left for him before she left. What a great tactic. Qiu Jianhan was filled with melancholy. First, they mobilized the people to destroy the Nine Supremes. The law does not punish the masses. Even if they wanted to pursue the matter, they couldn't. Then, they destroyed all possibilities of divine authority, ensuring that Yutong's imperial family is the highest authority, the only authority. There will be no more restraints from then on, and they have even destroyed their own origins. With such a tactic in front of them, there was no need to force them. The old officials were disheartened and left dejectedly. When one of them left, one of their own would be replaced. The emperor would be a mere figurehead with his own tacit consent, leaving no room for maneuver. Then, from the military to the government, they would take care of them one by one. Those who didn't know what was good for them and didn't resign on their own will be transferred away. It's like a giant net that falls from the sky, leaving nothing behind wherever it passes. What a decisive method, what a vicious heart. As for the current imperial court, from the inside to the outside, from the top to the bottom, they are all the crown heir's men. It has only been a short 4 years. In the current situation, even if His Majesty recovers and wants to do something, I'm afraid he may not be able to turn the situation around. Is this still a 16 or 17-year-old child? No wonder His Majesty didn't do anything. This kind of successor to the throne, this kind of emperor's schemes, is indeed qualified. As an emperor of a generation, he is indeed worthy of this position. But, such ruthlessness and such treachery, where did he come from? The first thing he destroyed was Supreme Cloud and the reputation of the Nine Supremes, whom he was indebted to. Is he leaving himself with no way out? Now that the situation is like this, the emperor is helpless. There is only one heir, the only one, and Yun Xiaoyao is helpless as well. No matter how much he hates him, he is still the person Supreme Cloud entrusted to him before he left. The reason why we can't go all out against him is because Supreme Cloud entrusted him to inherit the throne. But, Supreme Cloud Yunyang, do you know what you've left behind? He's not a wise ruler, he's a tyrant. And it's an unprecedented level of brutality. How long more can this world remain peaceful and stable? In the palace, Bauer, the current crown heir, His Highness Yu Qingquan, was sitting on a chair high and mighty. He was no more than 15 or 16 years old, but he was handsome and had a pair of eyebrows so thick that it was surprising, but there was no trace of childishness between them. At this moment, he held a memorial in his hand as he slowly recited, "Deranged." His victory in massacres far surpasses that of his ancestors. Great rivers and mountains were destroyed by the crown heir in one day. Countless capable officials and good generals were expelled and abandoned. This old man is unable to serve such a ruler. Thus, I hereby submit a memorial and leave. This Wu Lai, what a righteous man he is. He had nothing to do with the military or political parties, nor did he have any desire to compete with them. I wanted to keep him around, but I didn't expect this fellow to submit a memorial to resign. It's fine that he resigned, but he even insulted me with so many words. He only mentioned resignation in his last sentence. Rather than calling it resignation, it's more like he's venting his resentment at the last moment. Yu Qingquan snorted and said with a chuckle, "His words are nonsensical, and his literary talent is even worse. I don't need such an official." With a wave of his hand, the word "approved" appeared on the memorial. "Your Highness, this servant has something to report. Come in. The arrangements at Tianshan Cliff have been made." Yu Qingquan slowly raised his head and looked at the eunuch with a vulture-like gaze. he said indifferently, "Why are you speaking so loudly? Are you afraid that this prince won't hear you, or are you afraid that others won't hear you?" The eunuch was stunned when he heard that. "My voice isn't that loud." Yu Qingquan raised his voice and asked, "Who is at the door? Come in." 4 guards and 2 palace maids knelt on the ground, trembling with fear. "Greetings, Your Highness." Who among you is the spy?" Yu Qingquan's gaze was like an arrow, cold as ice. The 4 of them were baffled, as if they didn't understand what the person in front of them meant. "You don't know? Then you don't need to know." Yu Qingquan laughed coldly and said, "Men, drag these 7 people out and beat them to death." Amidst the pleading, the 7 of them were dragged out. With a flash, an old eunuch appeared in front of Yu Qingquan like a ghost. "Your Highness, this is..." It's like the voice you're using right now. You're only talking to me, but it definitely won't reach the ears of the guards at the door. This is a normal voice. Do you understand?" Just now, when that servant spoke, he clearly raised his voice on purpose. "Did you see that? Did you understand?" The old eunuch hesitated for a moment and thought about it carefully. It was indeed a little too loud. "Since he's right beside me, I can hear him even if he doesn't have to speak so loudly. So where did he come from?" "It's just that he wanted to let others hear about this matter at the same time and spread the news as soon as possible. This is because he knows that the information he reports will immediately be sent to the secret bureau and will only be released after at least half a month. So, if he wants to spread the news, he can only do it after he's escorted back to the palace. The route into the palace has been set up and there's no way he can take advantage of it. If he wants to spread the news, he can only come to me. So, that servant must be a spy, and at least one of the palace maids and guards at the door is his accomplice. Naturally, she's also a spy." Yu Qingquan said indifferently, "What's wrong with killing them?" The old eunuch bowed slightly and said, "Even if there's a spy hiding, we should still investigate it. Perhaps we can find out who's behind it. 7 people were beaten to death in one go, and there are even more innocent people. I don't have that much time to waste. There's no point in interrogating them." Yu Qingquan said indifferently, "We must ensure that this matter succeeds. This is the most important task right now. At such a crucial moment, it's better to kill the wrong person than to let the wrong person go. Everything else is insignificant. Bring me all the information related to Tianshan Cliff. Bring me 3 copies of the secret reports that accompanied the trip as well and compare them." For a full 2 hours, Yu Qingquan stood in front of the window with his hands clasped behind his back. He looked outside and did not speak for a long time. His eyes flashed with countless struggles and changes. Finally, he closed his eyes and said indifferently, "Proceed according to plan." A piece of news came out of nowhere, very abruptly. The content of the message was that Tai Zheng's tracks had been found at the old site of Tianshan Cliff, and that he was there to pay his respects to the 9 Supremes. Countless experts from the imperial court were mobilized to capture him. They were also going to raze Tianshan Cliff to the ground, completely ending the legend of the 9 Supremes, the starting point of the legend of Supreme Cloud. The news spread like wildfire. Lao Mei's expression changed the moment he heard about it. Tianshan Cliff. The last sacred place related to the 9 Supremes should not be desecrated, let alone destroyed. Big brother? Lao Mei did not address Yun Xiaoyao as Your Highness this time, but used the form of address that they used to address each other as brothers. "This matter is unusual." Yun Xiaoyao smiled faintly and said slowly, "Of course it's unusual. The goal of this matter is to eradicate me." He chuckled, but his smile was bitter and bleak. "This poisonous hand is finally going to extend to my body. Bauer, you're my good child, ha." Yun Xiaoyao laughed into the sky. "Whatever you want to do, I don't care, I don't give a damn. But today you finally found my weakness, Tianshan Cliff. You can trample on any other place, you can destroy, but not Tianshan Cliff. You can ask Bauer to withdraw his order. Big brother, why do you have to go to Tianshan Cliff yourself? Bauer is long gone. Saying that a general is outside and not obeying the emperor's orders is enough to shut everyone up. I believe that he must have left for more than a day. It's too far to hope for him to withdraw his order. The only way to stop him is for me to rush over through the night and protect Tianshan Cliff personally. At the same time, I'll ask him to withdraw his order. Only then will I be safe. In other words, I have to go. Otherwise, Tianshan Cliff will be destroyed. And this move is the only way to lure me out." Yun Xiaoyao smiled faintly. "You're indeed the descendant of the 9 Supremes. You're resolute and extreme enough to make this place your final destination. I have nothing to say, Big brother, you can't go. You know that the trap is right in front of you. Why walk right into it? No, that brat has already calculated it. Even if I know I'm going to die, I'll still go. Yun Xiaoyao said, "This is a trap for me. He knows that this is the only place I care about in this world. As long as someone makes a move, I'll definitely go. The trap has already been set up there. If you really go, it's no different from digging your own grave. How can you escape unscathed?" Lao Mei said anxiously. "Don't you understand? Everyone has something that they can't give up. Tianshan Cliff is something that I can't give up in this world. It's the last trace my son left in this world. Either it lives with me or it dies with me. That's all there is to it." Yun Xiaoyao said coldly, "That brat has calculated that I'll go no matter what. That's why he laid this trap. I'll go with you." "No way." Yun Xiaoyao tapped a finger on Lao Mei's chest and fixed him in place. He then placed him on the bed and said faintly, "Brother, I'll go alone. My chances of escaping are slightly higher. If you go, you'll only drag me down. You'd better watch the house. Perhaps I'll be back soon." Lao Mei's eyes were wide with anger. He wanted to speak and struggle, but he could neither speak nor move. It was too dangerous. They knew that Yun Xiaoyao was the unrivaled expert of this world, the strongest person, but they had still laid a trap. Then, they must have a high degree of confidence that they could keep Yun Xiaoyao there. It was too dangerous for Yun Xiaoyao to go alone. Lao Mei was well aware of this. However, he was restrained by Yun Xiaoyao. Not only could he not move, he could not even speak. He could only watch as Yun Xiaoyao slowly put on his long robe, unsheathed his treasured sword and left through the window. The sound of hooves thundered at the door as he galloped away. Yun Xiaoyao's departure from the city was not a secret at all. Too many people had seen it. Qiu Jianhan was the first to know about it. Then, ignoring his body's pain, he forced himself up and went to the palace to look for the emperor. "Yun Xiaoyao has left the city. Do you know about it, Your Majesty?" The emperor's face was filled with a strange expression. It was like he was comforted, but it was also like he was chilled. He looked at Qiu Jianhan and said, "Old Qiu, speak your mind." Before this, Tianshan Cliff had always been well protected. Even when the world was destroying the 9 supreme statues and erasing Supreme Cloud's traces, no one had touched Tianshan Cliff. Qiu Jianhan's gaze was cold. "Initially, we thought that it was the last sanctuary reserved by the royal family for the 9 supremes. After all, it was the beginning of the legend of the 9 supremes and the legend of Supreme Cloud. It was only today that I realized that the reason why no one had touched Tianshan Cliff and was so tightly protected was because it was not the time to move. Tianshan Cliff was actually a huge trap that had been set long ago. A trap that we had no choice but to fall into despite knowing that it was a trap." The emperor's expression did not change. The one this trap wanted to bury was Yun Xiaoyao. Qiu Jianhan said word by word, "All these years, we have done nothing in the face of the eldest grandson of the emperor. We have allowed ourselves to be divided and oppressed. Many of our old brothers have left. You've given away the entire imperial court, the entire world. Your Majesty, isn't that enough?" The emperor was silent for a long time. "We all know that your body can't take it anymore, but is it necessary to let Yun Xiaoyao die as well? Is it even necessary to use such a despicable method?" Qiu Jianhan pressed. Chapter 1421. The emperor said softly, "He can leave. Nothing will happen as long as he leaves, but why doesn't he leave?" Qiu Jianhan replied angrily, "Leave? Why does he want to leave? Why is it Yun Xiaoyao who leaves? Why is it not the crown heir who repents?" His Majesty looked at the white clouds in the sky and said faintly, "It doesn't matter whether he leaves or not. Yun Xiaoyao, this is a lesson that I've taught him. With the ability he possesses now, he can't kill the current Yun Xiaoyao." Qiu Jianhan chuckled coldly. "Your Majesty, do you really know the full extent of His Highness the Crown's eldest grandson possesses? Even if you do, can you guarantee his safety? What if there's a mishap?" The emperor chuckled humorlessly. "If there's a mishap, then there's only a mishap." Qiu Jianhan let out an inhuman chuckle. "Your Majesty, we were willing to give in. Even though we were disappointed, we still gave in. Who is Yun Xiaoyao? What right do you have to disappoint him and make him give in? If Yun Xiaoyao really dies, let's not talk about the reactions of us old codgers. Just Supreme Cloud alone. Do you know that he really won't be able to come back?" The emperor said softly, "Old Qiu, you're thinking too far ahead. I can't think that far ahead anymore. My illness has acted up previously and I'm already beyond cure. I'm less than 70 caddies now. Perhaps I'll have to pass away within this month. Otherwise, Why would I be in such a hurry to hand over my power? I don't have the time anymore. As for the current situation, even if I'm not happy to see it, it's because of me. Even if I really regret it, it's already too late. I can't do anything about it. Currently the world has been unified, and what we need is a strong ruler to completely consolidate the power. Even if the means are cruel, it will be fine after this transition period. His Majesty said softly, Bao-er's actions are acceptable for a candidate to be an emperor. At most, he is just a little heartless. As an emperor, which one of them isn't a loner? It's just that he's a little heartless. But, Qiu Jianhan sneered. Your Majesty has used the word well and accurately. Just because of this reason, you can do whatever you want and sacrifice anyone. I told you I don't have much time. I'll abdicate in 5 days. After I abdicate, everything will be over. His Majesty said in a deep voice. This old man doesn't care about these things, and I have no interest in them. Qiu Jianhan said faintly, what about entrusting an orphan to you supervising the empire, Regent? Don't mention this old man anymore. This old man has only stayed to send you off, to fulfill the last bit of my relationship as a ruler and official. I hope that you walk before Yin Xiaoyao. Otherwise there's no need for this last bit of loyalty. There was no spark in Qiu Jianhan's eyes, only iciness. His Majesty heaved a long sigh and did not speak for a long time. 5 days later, the emperor abdicated the throne to the crown heir. The entire nation celebrated and pardoned the people. 7 days later, the emperor slept in his chambers and did not wake up. Qiu Jianhan dragged his sickly body to keep vigil at the coffin, but he had only stayed for a day before he could not take it anymore and was carried home by his family. It was also on the same night that Qiu Jianhan and his family vanished from the imperial capital. Within a few days, more than 1,000 of Qiu Jianhan's subordinates had gone missing. Their whereabouts were unknown, scattered like drifting stars. In the study, only a few pieces of the old marshal's calligraphy were left behind. The mighty Yutong, the mighty 9 supremes. The night is filled with stars, and the Big Dipper, the warriors of the world honor their superior. A lifetime of fighting in the world, safe and sound even when one's body is maimed. Millions of enemies are killed on horseback, but the land is safe and secure under one's hands. For whom do I toil? For whom do I fight? For whom do I suffer? For whom do I rest? A hero dies after 100 battles, only then do I feel the chill in my heart. Your Majesty, old Marshal Qiu has left as well. Yu Qingkuan, who was dressed in mourning clothes, lifted his head slowly and said calmly, left. Yes. Pass on my decree, announce to the world that Qiu Jianhan is conferred the title of Duke of an Hereditary. Yes. The mournful music in the palace continued. Yu Qingkuan, who had inherited the throne, sat in the royal study, deep in thought with his eyes closed. 13. This servant is here. Is there any news of those people? We are investigating. No hurry, take your time. Yu Qingkuan said slowly in a low voice, these people all have the power to stir up a storm in the world. If they join forces, they will become a great threat to me. The Bloodsword Pavilion and the Black Knights must not be missed. Yes. The Shangguan family of generals, Qiu, Leng, Fang, Tai, Fu, Sun, these people are the most important. Get rid of the leaders first, the rest are nothing to worry about. Yes. Is there any news from Tianshan Cliff? King Yun did not act immediately, only watching from afar. Our men dare not get too close. How is the manpower allocation? The encirclement is complete. Good. The young emperor paced 2 steps, a hint of hesitation flashing in his eyes. At this moment, he suddenly recalled the days when he had just arrived at the residence of Yun. Yun Xiaoyao had often hugged him, his face full of smiles and kindness. His gaze hesitated for a long time before he suddenly murmured, "Ninth uncle?" A black-clothed and masked silhouette glided past him quietly. Yun Yang's face seemed to be looking at him. Yu Qingkuan's hesitant gaze turned cold and resolute once again as he addressed the young man as ninth uncle. His voice was soft but resolute as he said, "Move. Ninth uncle, don't blame me. Your reputation in Yutong is too great. If Supreme Cloud continues to exist, the entire world will only be shrouded in your shadow. I don't want that kind of world. I want to be the master of my world. I don't want it to be dominated by anyone. All lands under the heavens belong to the Emperor. All those who rule the land belong to the Emperor. I want my orders to be the only voice in this world, without any hesitation for anyone or any force. Ninth uncle, since you've gone to another world, you're a deity. Then, don't come back. Everything in this world has nothing to do with you anymore. Since you can't come back, Why do you have to block your nephew's path? The night was dark. The palace was like a dark and gloomy hell. The wind blew as if countless people were sighing softly at the same time. It was on this very night. The dethroned crown prince, the second prince, the fourth prince, all the members of the royal family who were scattered across the country, their families, guards, maids, housekeepers, all related people were killed, not sparing a single chicken or dog. The statistics after the event were tallied. In just one night, more than 100 people of the royal bloodline had died, and the total number of people who had died because of this incident was more than 100,000. This was obviously a premeditated, vicious, and merciless massacre. The world was shocked. As the news reached the capital, the young emperor was enraged and swore to find the culprit. Yutong, which had been peaceful for a long time, was suddenly plunged into chaos. Scouts were sent out everywhere, and the atmosphere of the world became unprecedentedly tense. Countless experts recruited by the royal family were scattered throughout the martial world. Some were indeed investigating something, but most of the top-notch experts changed their course halfway and headed towards Tianshan Cliff. In a dense forest near Tianshan Cliff, Yun Xiaoyao had been sitting on the tree in this dense forest for 5 days and 5 nights, looking at the tiny temple on top of Tianshan Cliff from afar. There were already soldiers setting up camp there. However, they had yet to begin dismantling the temple. Since they did not move, Yun Xiaoyao did not move either. He understood their plan very well, and was even more aware that their real target this time was only him. However, there was no joy or sorrow in Yun Xiaoyao's heart. There was only calmness. It does not matter. With Yun Yang's last words before he left, no one in this world who is qualified or capable will take his life. It is even more impossible for me to do so. I only want to see how far you can go. How far can you really go? If your setup can really kill me, it doesn't matter. I have no more attachments to this world, I'm even tired of it. My only regret is that I can't see my son again. Even if I die, don't you dare touch Tianshan Cliff. A green-robed figure with 2 guards walked over leisurely from several hundred miles away from Tianshan Cliff in a frivolous manner. Behind him, there was a team of about 20 people, each of them acting extremely sloppily. Chun Wanfeng and the rest should be here soon, right? Those fellows' journey is even slower than mine, even slower than a tortoise's crawl. Dong Qianling, who was dressed in a green robe and hat, advanced lazily. This time I'm going to light incense for Boss Brothers. Then I'm going to have a good drink with Uncle Yun. If anything happens to Uncle Yun, the few of us won't be able to see Boss anymore. We might as well hang ourselves. Sai, why aren't those 3 bastards here yet? Are they really slower than a tortoise? On Tianshan Cliff, the Temple of 9 Supremes. 9 masked statues lined up in a row, smoke billowing into the air. A general who was fully armored stood quietly at the temple's door. Looking at the 9 statues in the temple, he actually had a feeling of not daring to enter. It was as if these 9 people were looking at him quietly, saying, "You dare to come in and try?" The incomer took a deep breath, his feet finally moving. Just as he was about to step in, the guilt in his heart surged again. Lifting his head, he saw the eyes of the 9 Supremes staring at him from behind their masks. Knowing that it was only an illusion, how could the clay statues have gazes? The person could not help but feel his scalp tingle. Instead of advancing, he retreated out of the temple. The assistant general behind him asked suspiciously, "General?" The general coughed and said, "The time isn't ripe yet. Wait for the order before we act." He then turned and walked out of the temple without stopping. As the sky darkened, the entire Tianshan Cliff was engulfed in darkness, looking eerie and creepy. There seemed to be silhouettes in the dark, like thousands of soldiers and horses were lying in ambush, waiting for an opportunity to strike. In the darkness, a voice asked his companion softly, "Second brother Wei, do you think the 9 Supremes Lords are really the royal family's secret weapon? The kind of people who are specially trained? Men of sacrifice?" Another person asked in a low voice, "Do you have any doubts?" The person replied, "I still feel that something is wrong. The 9 Supremes have sacrificed their lives for the nation and the people. The past is still fresh in my mind. So what if they're trained by the royal family? Their unparalleled achievements are a fact. What does this have to do with training? Merit was merit. Training them was also merit. Was it a greater merit to do it on one's own initiative? Isn't it all for Yutong's people? No matter how I think about it, I feel that something isn't right." That day at Tianshan Cliff, another person said coldly, "Shut up. Do you King want to die? Even if you do, don't drag us into this." The man immediately fell silent. Another person said in a low voice, There's more than one person in the military who feels wronged for the 9 Supremes Lords. What happened to those people? The lucky ones could retire due to injury or disability. There are plenty of people who died mysteriously. What happened to those who worked for the 9 Supremes Lords? This isn't something we should worry about. The world has changed now. Mind your own business. If you speak nonsense in front of me again, don't blame me for disregarding our brotherhood and reporting you. The person did not utter another word. There was no sound around. After a long time, a few low sighs could be heard. 4 teams of people. They were all heading towards Tianshan Cliff and were not far from each other. That was probably the case. 2 of the squads had already met in the wilderness. Chen Wanfeng. Dong Qianling howled excitedly, waving his arms and legs. On the other side, a handsome youth dressed in white ran over with a face full of joy. Dong Qianling, you be asterisk tisich, why are you still wearing such flashy attire? Are you used to playing the role of a tortoise? I'm not like you. It's only been 2 years and you've turned into a sissy. Where's Chiu Yun-san and the rest? A clear voice came from behind a small hill. This young master is right here watching you 2 be asterisk cheese playing cheap tricks. Both of them cursed loudly at the same time. Soon after, the 3 of them got into a mess and fought each other for quite a while. The guards that they had brought along all watched with smiles on their faces. They didn't step forward to stop the fight and just watched the show. There was even someone who opened a bet to bet on who had the most bruises on their head. After a long time, the 3 of them laid on the ground with bruised faces, panting heavily. Suddenly they burst out laughing in unison. Awesome. The 3 of them cheered at the same time. It was as if being beaten up, abused and ravaged was something they had been looking forward to for a long time. Ever since Boss ascended to the upper realm, I haven't felt so good. Dong Qianling said with nostalgia. That's right. I wonder how Boss is now. Why doesn't he come down to see us? Chen Wanfeng grumbled. Chiu Yun-san said, I guess Boss is riding high now. He's just like before. A person like Boss can't be riding high wherever he goes. Dong Qianling and Chen Wanfeng nodded in agreement. It was rare that they shared the same sentiments. However, Yutong's officials have been stirring up trouble these past few years. I've wanted to jump out a few times but I was stopped by my family, especially when my second uncle suppressed me with no regard for his own life. Chiu Yun-san said unhappily, if it were up to me, I would have gone to the capital city to wreak havoc. What a bunch of bastards. Boss' unparalleled achievements have been wiped clean by them. What royal nurturing. Chapter 1422. Dong Qianling pursed his lips and said, we have to be careful in dealing with this matter. I heard from my elders that it's complicated, including the battle of providence for the unification of the human realm. They told me not to get involved. If I act rashly, there will be the risk of death. The battle of providence? The risk of death? Chen Wanfeng was deep in thought. Far away, Yun Xiaoyao, who was watching the scene from the treetop dozens of miles away, felt his heart skip a beat. The sentence seemed to have a deeper meaning. Could it be this? Why isn't Xia Bingchuan here yet? Dong Qianling grew impatient. We agreed to pay our respects to Big Brother and protect Uncle. Why isn't this fellow here after so long? If we're talking about distance, he's the nearest one. Chen Wanfeng and Chiu Yun-san scolded as well. The treetop. Yun Xiaoyao suddenly felt a warmth that he had not felt for a long time, nourishing his almost parched heart. I see. I was wondering why these guys all came here at the same time. Hey Chen Wanfeng, how's your cultivation base? Dong Qianling asked, what level are you at? Me? I'm already above the supreme level. Chen Wanfeng scoffed. What about you? Me too, Dong Qianling said. Me too, but I'm in the advanced stage just a little faster than the both of you. Don't be envious of me, Chiu Yun-san said. Our cultivation base is almost at the peak of this world. We're only one step away from leaving Tianshan and going to the upper realm. Dong Qianling sighed. Your father has been slacking during this period of time, lacking motivation. Sometimes I even have the stupid thought of not wanting to go up. It's mainly because I don't dare to go up. I'm afraid that I'll fall from the pinnacle of this world to a weakling once I climb up. Chiu Yun-san chuckled bitterly. Me too. Thinking of all the hardships we've gone through to finally reach where we are today, to climb to the peak and look down on the world. If we really go up, I'm afraid we'll have to start from the bottom again. Everyone is stronger than us. It's not just irritating, it's terrifying. Chen Wanfeng sighed. That's right. With the resources that Boss left for us, we could have crossed the peak of this world and ascended to the upper realm a long time ago. In the end, it's all about fear. The three of them were at a loss. You're really useless. You're a good for nothing. You two are so useless. They looked at each other and suddenly burst out laughing so hard that their stomachs hurt. Eldest brother talked about second brother and third brother, and second brother talked about eldest brother and third brother. The three of them talked to each other and actually reflected each other. The 40 to 50 guards and experts from the three noble families who had come with the three brothers were all sighing as well. Indeed, ascending to the upper realm was no different from a myth to the people of this world. At least it was only a legend before Yun Yang's ascension. However, after Yun Yang and Ji Lingxi had ascended, this legend was no longer just a legend, especially to the three young masters who had been protecting them. With the cultivation base and combat prowess of Dong Tianling and the other two, there was no need for bodyguards. There was no one in this world who could lay a finger on them. Only a fight between these brothers could leave a trace of a mark. However, one thing was still undeniable: as long as they ascended to the upper realm, there was a 99% chance that they would have to start all over again. Rumor had it that the upper realm was good in every aspect. One's lifespan would be greatly extended, and the path of martial arts would be wider and longer. However, on the other hand, the danger would be elevated to an unprecedented height. In fact, other than the extremely fanatical martial arts fanatics, the others who had reached the level of Dong Tianling and the others would basically hesitate. Were they really going to give up their current position of ascending to the pinnacle and overlooking the world, and go to the so-called upper realm to start all over again from the very bottom? This was a difficult decision for anyone to make. Moreover, most of Dong Tianling and the others' cultivation base had been achieved in a short period of time. Even though they had been tempered by many battles and had no regrets, there was still a considerable gap between their mental state and that of cultivators who had climbed up little by little through countless trials and tribulations. In this world, I can summon the wind and summon the rain. I'm high and mighty. If I really went to the upper realm, I might just be killed by a random stranger in a few days' time. In this world, no one dares to disrespect me or look up to me. However, when I reach the upper realm, I can only look up to others. Perhaps I can't even compare to the guards. Should I still go up? At the very least, these guards had to ask themselves, would they go up if they had reached this stage? As long as they thought about it, who would have the courage to look down on the three young masters for their lack of ambition? Amidst the laughter, suddenly, a loud explosion came from afar. Everyone fell silent, their eyes gleaming as they looked into the distance. Is that the sound of battle? Dong Tianling sprung up and soared into the air, looking up. At this time, another long howl came from afar. The volume of the sound was already very weak, but one could still hear that the voice was filled with rage and helplessness. This is Xia Bingxuan's voice. Qiu Yunsan's ears twitched. The sounds of battle were endless. Dong Tianling, who was still in the air, let out a long howl and flew over with a whoosh. Xia Bingxuan, run this way. The shout was deafening like a clap of thunder. Almost at the same time, another long howl came from the other side, but it was filled with indescribable joy. Then the sounds of battle grew more intense, as if the enemy had noticed the arrival of reinforcements and began to attack with all their might, hoping to finish off the target before the reinforcements arrived. 50 to 60 people from the three families flew over like lightning under the lead of the third young master. As Dong Tianling and the other two young masters sprinted at full speed, they could not help but feel a sense of doubt. Their cultivation base had always been on the same level as Xia Bingxuan. There was not much of a difference between them as they were all the pinnacle experts of this world. Then who and what force was attacking Xia Bingxuan? Yet, the other party actually possessed the ability to force Xia Bingxuan to his death. It was a marvelous sight indeed. They could not afford to be careless in the upcoming battle. Amidst the yellow sand that covered the sky and obscured their vision, two silhouettes could be seen stumbling out from afar. The one in front was Xia Bingxuan. His face was deathly pale and his body was covered in blood. One of his arms was dangling, and the other was dragging an unconscious person. He was struggling to run towards them. Amidst the smoke and dust behind him, a dark silhouette sprinted out like a demonic god descending into the world. With a chuckle, the silhouette leaped 300 feet into the air and arrived above Xia Bingxuan. His sword struck down like a bolt of lightning. Dong Tianling was at the forefront. With a loud roar, the sword in his hand flew out like a meteor chasing after the moon, its momentum unstoppable. The person who thought that he would definitely hit his target stopped abruptly. If he did not retract his sword, he might be able to kill Xia Bingxuan, but it would be difficult for him to avoid the sword that had left his hand. Helpless, he blocked it with his sword. With a loud clang, the man in black retreated 100 feet while Dong Tianling's sword disappeared in a flash due to the impact of the impact, its whereabouts unknown. Dong Tianling, who came right after, landed abruptly. He scooped up a cloud of yellow sand and tossed it towards the other side like the waves of the sea. His arms stretched out to catch Xia Bingxuan's lifeless body before he spun around and shot out. When he landed, he was already back in the encirclement of his men. How is he? How is little Xia? Everyone gathered around to check on Xia Bingxuan's condition. Xia Bingxuan's face was ashen, his eyes white as he trembled. There were at least 17 to 18 spots on his body that were bleeding profusely. Even his handsome face was covered in scars. There was even a wound at the back of his head, as if a layer of his scalp had been shaved off by a sharp weapon. He did not look human at all. Seeing Dong Tianling, Qiu Yunsan and the others, Xia Bingxuan's eyes glinted with joy. He wanted to say something, but just as he opened his mouth to speak, his eyes rolled back and he fainted. Everyone knew the person he had been dragging along. It was Xia Bingxuan's personal guard. He had lost more than 90% of his life and his condition was no better than Xia Bingxuan's. Stay alert. Prepare for battle. Qiu Yunsan, come and heal little Xia. Chun Wanfeng, you take the back while I take the front. Dong Tianling roared decisively. Everyone moved according to his voice. Seeing Xia Bingxuan's terrible condition, they could tell that the enemy was not someone to be trifled with. In addition, the sword that he had released earlier was already the limit of his cultivation base. However, forcing the other party to retreat further proved that the other party was a formidable foe that he had never met before in his life. At this time, black-clothed and masked silhouettes emerged one after another amidst the hubbub of dust. On the left and right, a large group of black-clothed and masked men appeared as well. In the blink of an eye, they had formed an encirclement. Not only were the other party's abilities formidable, they had so many people as well. Which force in this world could be so powerful? Behind them, a sharp howl came from the forest. Have you blocked all of them? A black-clothed and masked man in the yellow sand laughed loudly. Not a single one is missing, I've surrounded them all. Then he chortled. Good. Sharp whistling sounds rang out from all directions. Countless masked men in black appeared in an endless stream from afar and surrounded them. The silhouettes were densely packed, all of them masked and dressed in black. Dong Tianling looked around, his heart skipping a beat. There were so many masked men in black, none of them were mediocre. There were at least 5,000 of them, almost like a small army. These people had surrounded 56 people on his side, including Xia Bingxuan and Dong Tianling. It was a large circle of 400 to 500 feet in circumference. The surrounding people were closely packed, airtight and impenetrable. Dong Tianling sucked in a long breath and straightened his back, speaking in a menacing tone. Masked men? Do you dare to tell me your name? The leader of the masked men chuckled and said, Of course not. How would we dare to report our names when facing the young masters of the 4 noble families? How could we not bear the revenge of the 4 noble families? Countless masked men in black guffawed. I've long heard that the eldest young master of the Dong family, Dong Tianling, has a screw loose in his head. Now that I've seen it, it's true. If we could register, would we still need to cover our faces today? Dong Tianling guffawed. A bunch of frogs at the bottom of a well, a motley crew. Do you think you can live if you don't register? Even when they were outnumbered and heavily surrounded, Dong Tianling and the others were not afraid at all. Instead, they were eager to try. Before Yunyang ascended to the upper realm, he had left a sea of resources for the 4 noble young masters. Each of these 4 fellows' cultivation base was already at the pinnacle of this world. Other than the national war they had participated in, they had only engaged in small skirmishes. There was still a chance for them to encounter a real war. The 3 young masters had the same thought as they roared excitedly, Go! Leave no one alive. As soon as they finished speaking, they charged forward, taking the lead. Their stance was like they were besieging their opponents, filled with a sense of superiority and invincibility. Dong Tianling roared as he charged, It's finally my turn. Back then, Boss fought 10,000 enemies alone and dominated the continent. Now watch us slaughter our way through, we won't let Boss enjoy all the glory. Wah! However, the guards of the family wore bitter expressions as a strong sense of danger rose within them. The situation did not look good at all. It was obvious that the enemy had planned for such a large number of troops to be stationed in such a remote place. If they were not confident, how would they dare to ambush Xia Bingxuan and his team? Although the cultivation base of the 4 noble young masters had skyrocketed, their popinjays were still the same. When they went out, they still brought along a large number of people and guards. With their current capabilities, they no longer needed guards. If Dong Qianling and the other two young masters were like that, how could Xia Bingchuan be an exception? It would be strange if he did not bring dozens of people with him. Other than Xia Bingchuan, there was only one survivor among them, and both of them were half dead. More than 90% of their lives had been lost. Where were the other guards then? The answer was obvious: they had all been killed. Another problem arose. Xia Bingchuan's cultivation base was not inferior to Dong Qianling and the others, while Xia Bingchuan's guards were not inferior to Dong Qianling's guards either. Since the enemy had the ability to take care of Xia Bingchuan and his team, would they not? Dong Qianling had used all his strength in his sword attack just now, but he had only managed to force the enemy to retreat instead of inflicting more damage on them. This was already a clear indication of the problem. However, there was no point in talking about it now. Whether they wanted to break out of the encirclement or annihilate them, they needed to fight. The guards who followed Dong Qianling and the others were all passionate men who had participated in the national war. Although they were on high alert, there was no fear in their hearts. They were just a little more cautious. As the enemy's horns sounded, attacks were launched from all directions. Dong Qianling and the others who were surrounded did not gather to defend themselves. Instead, they counterattacked aggressively. Dong Qianling and the other two young masters were the first to charge forward. With a loud bang, the first contact was met with a wave of blood that burst into the sky. Dong Qianling and the other two young masters attacked side by side. The tacit understanding that stemmed from the national war was on full display. The moment they came into contact, more than 10 men in black were killed by the three of them. However, Dong Qianling and the other two young masters felt their hearts sink the moment they fought. The strength of the enemy was far beyond their expectations. In the previous wave of attacks, the three of them had used almost all of their strength. Although the results seemed impressive as they had killed 11 people in one go, there were actually more than 40 to 50 people on the other side. Apart from the 11 who had died, the others were only lightly injured and still had the strength to fight again. More importantly, the three of them had actually felt a strong recoil when they attacked aggressively and were almost injured. This further proved that the enemy before them was not only strong in combat, but also knew them well, which was why they had purposely set up a formation to deal with them. Triangular formation. Qiu Yunsan roared, "The three of us, each of us will be responsible for one arrowhead." Chun Wanfeng and Dong Qianling agreed in unison, and the formation was immediately reversed. Although the three of them were quick in coming up with a countermeasure, they were still a step too slow. If they had used the triangular formation from the start, they might not have been able to kill the dozen men, but they would have been much more proactive than they were now. There would be more ways for them to manipulate the situation, and at least they would not be too passive. With that one wrong word, the follow-up reactions were all delayed. The black-clothed masked men on the other side issued their orders repeatedly. Wave after wave of attacks were launched from all directions. They attacked all the guards indiscriminately, causing the triangular formation that the three of them had set up to be unable to form in a short period of time. In the moment of stalemate where the enemy was orderly and their side was struggling to cope, cries of agony rang out continuously. 40 to 50 men in black were lying dead on the ground, while 4 of the family guards on the 4 young masters' side had fallen dead as well. By the time the triangular formation was formed, only 49 of the 56 people on their side were still intact. 7 to 8 of them were injured and their combat strength was greatly reduced. Even Qiu Yunsan's shoulder had been pierced by a sword and was bleeding profusely. Dong Qianling's heart skipped a beat. Are they from the army? Are they soldiers? Since the start of the battle, the masked men in black had not spoken a word. They were like cold machines, only operating swiftly and effectively throughout the entire battle. The sound of horns rose and fell as black flags flew in and out, transmitting messages. The men in black took turns to attack like the ebb and flow of the tide. More than 5,000 people besieging more than 40 people, their pace was not messed up at all. It was like layers upon layers of mountains, each wave higher than the one before it. It was as if everyone was attacking and not a single person's strength was wasted. This kind of attack rhythm and attack pattern, if not for the fact that he was a well-trained soldier, it would be impossible to achieve. The others heard Dong Qianling's cry as well, but they were even more puzzled. It was not strange for the soldiers to be able to execute orders and gather everyone's strength to besiege a target. All of them had participated in the battle at the Fortress of Resilience and were familiar with the military's combat methods. However, there was absolutely no army in this world that could actually suppress Dong Qianling and the other two with their cultivation base and strength. Even the Shadow Cavalry who had dominated the world back then, did not possess the combat power of so many high-level practitioners. Furthermore, through this period of stalemate, the other party's high-end combat power was gradually revealed. Many of them had already reached the level of a supreme, only slightly weaker than Dong Tianling and the others. Who in the entire continent could build such an army? As time passed, the battle grew more and more intense. Dong Tianling held off two of the other party's commanders with his own strength. His green robes fluttered in the wind as he roared angrily, "Who are you people? Why are you targeting us?" One of the commanders in black said faintly, "Now that the encirclement is complete, you can't escape even if you have wings. There's no harm in telling you. I'll let you, young Master Dong, die knowing the truth." He chuckled coldly and lowered his voice. "The main purpose of this operation at Tianshan Cliff is naturally to kill Yun Xiaoyao. Everything is prepared and we're only waiting for him to enter the trap. You four popinjays popping out to ruin the plan? If I don't kill you, who am I going to kill? Dong Tianling, if there's a next life, remember to figure out what you can and can't do." Dong Tianling roared angrily, "CKU? Who do you think you are to lecture your father? Even if your father has to live again, I'll still come today. You bunch of trash want to harm Uncle Yun, your father will not allow it." He cursed loudly, "I know where you're from. Other than that bastard, no one else can make such a big fuss. Ingrates. You're worse than pigs and dogs. Your emperor is worse than dog*t. Kneeling in front of your father and kowtowing, your father thinks he's dirtying my eyes. Bastard. Animals worse than pigs and dogs. Do you think you're fit to be an emperor?" The three great young masters scolded loudly. The masked men in black were enraged. "Kill them as soon as possible." As soon as the order was given, the enemy's attack became more ferocious. A hoarse voice rang out, "You three pigs. Who asked you to fight here?" It was Xia Bingchuan who had just woken up from his coma, crying out in grief and indignation, "Break out quickly and inform Uncle Yun. It'll be a waste to die fighting here." Dong Tianling and the others came to their senses at once. "Break out? Break out? I forgot." The leader in black cackled strangely. "Perish together. Guillotine formation." The enemy activated their killing formation once more, increasing their attack power to a whole new level. The pressure on the three great young masters increased once more, to the point where they found it difficult to even defend themselves, let alone break out of the siege. For a moment, all the masked men in black charged forward as if they did not care about their lives, using their own bodies as weapons. A small portion of the black-clothed masked men would self-destruct as soon as they charged over. They would self-destruct one after another, and the rumbling sounds would ring out. Dong Tianling was currently at the forefront of the triangular formation, mustering all his strength to break out of the siege. However, faced with the most extreme and terrifying self-detonation attack, he could only withstand it for a short while before collapsing. He was covered in blood, his mouth and nose bleeding profusely as he fell back, becoming heavily injured. Even if it was Chun Wanfeng, he could only hold on for a few breaths before collapsing as well. Then it was Chiu Yunsan. Although Dong Tianling and the other two young masters had profound cultivation base and strong meridians, they still had the strength to fight despite being heavily injured. However, the situation was worsening as more and more of them were injured and unable to fight anymore. After a while, there were less than 15 people left from the 49 people who could still fight. The others were either unable to move due to severe injuries or were already dead. Dong Tianling and the other three sat in the center of their formation, barely breathing. The four brothers looked at each other and saw the bitter smile in each other's eyes. They had thought that they would shock the world with their guards, but who would have thought that they would be surrounded by so many terrifying opponents the moment they came out? They were about to become corpses, just as well. It's not a bad thing for us four brothers to walk the road to the underworld hand in hand. Chiu Yunsan coughed, spitting blood as he murmured, "Your father doesn't want to die at all. What a good thing." The other three men chuckled and said nothing more. Watching their guards being chopped down one by one and the men in black approaching, the four of them only had one doubt in their hearts. Where did the enemy gather so many experts from? In the past, any heaven mystic expert on the continent could easily guard an area. Now, even the weakest among the 5,000 people here was close to the heaven mystic level. The sea of azure light that seemed to form a sea of blue dazzled the four of them. Where did so many experts come from? Even if Yu Qingquan was already the overlord of this world, he had only ruled the world for a few days. How could he have nurtured such a strong combat force? Just as Dong Qianling and the others were filled with despair and were desperately trying to save their lives, a long howl suddenly resounded. The howl came from afar and approached them swiftly. Then cries of agony could be heard from the crowd. It was a silhouette that came like a white steed galloping across a crevice, plunging into the crowd of men in black like a meteor. Sword light spread rapidly like a hurricane. Wherever it passed, men and horses were thrown off their feet and blood sprayed into the sky. The person who came was Yun Xiaoyao. In this world, probably only Yun Xiaoyao could single-handedly attack a battle formation that was made up of such a strong combat force. Yun Xiaoyao's sword was like the wind, his feet did not stop as well. His body spun continuously, constantly changing his position. He would never face more than 3 enemies at the same time. He was using the advantage of his speed to divide and deal with the enemies that he had to face, so that he would always be at an absolute advantage. The moment he showed himself, his combat experience alone was enough to make the 4 noble young masters sigh in amazement at their own inferiority. Uncle Yun is amazing indeed. Dong Qianling gritted his teeth. We're saved now. Before his words echoed in the air, Yun Xiaoyao had already landed amidst the crowd, blood splattering everywhere. His sword swung out smoothly and a ring of sword energy shot out, drawing a large circle on where Dong Qianling and the others were. The sword returned to its scabbard immediately, but the piercing sword energy remained on the ground without dissipating. Those who enter this circle shall die, Yun Xiaoyao said faintly. He then turned to look at Dong Qianling and the others and said in a slightly reproachful tone, "How could the 4 of you be so careless?" Indeed, with Dong Qianling and the other 3's current cultivation base, if they had not been too careless and impulsive, they would not have fallen into such a near-death situation, no matter how strong the enemy was in terms of their numbers. On the other side, the masked men in black were momentarily at a loss of what to do. They looked at each other in dismay. The mark left by the sword edge on the sand was not very deep, but it was like a natural moat that separated the world, blocking the path of attack. The condensed sword chi did not disperse, and it was obvious that it contained great power. Along Yun Xiaoyao's path, corpses were strewn all over the place. The human alley that was at least 30 feet wide was still in the middle of the crowd. There were more than 200 corpses on the ground. Yun Xiaoyao, on the other hand, was unscathed. It was obvious that this was an absolute suppression of strength. In other words, Yun Xiaoyao's ability was not something that these masked men in black could deal with. With absolute strength before them, no matter how many heads they had, it was nothing. The leader of the masked men waved his hand to stop his subordinates from moving and said with a strange chuckle, "So it's King Yun who has come personally. This humble one has been disrespectful. Since King Yun is here, today's operation shall be called off. Retreat." With a wave of his hand, countless men in black retreated in all directions like the receding tide. In less than a dozen breaths' time, not only were the men in black gone, even the corpses, broken weapons and severed limbs were taken away. As they left, there was nothing unusual on the ground other than the bloodstains. "Who?" Dong Qianling heaved a long sigh and collapsed on the ground moaning, "You don't have to die anymore." Ah. His loud laughter had aggravated the injuries on his body, causing him to cry out in pain. Yun Xiaoyao sighed and said, "The predicament is still there. Heal your wounds quickly." He held his sword vigilantly. It looked like they were temporarily safe, but it was not an easy task to watch over so many injured people alone. If the enemy were to ambush them, he might not be able to take care of everything. He frowned as he pondered, having the same doubts as Dong Qianling and the others. It was not surprising that the young emperor had arranged for assassins, but where did he find so many experts from? This matter was not just strange, it was simply horrifying. After some time, everyone's injuries had recovered slightly and they could move, albeit with difficulty. Yun Xiaoyao urged them to make the best use of their time and leave this place. The place was empty and there was nothing to be seen. It was not a good place to rest and recuperate in peace. After burying the corpses, Dong Qianling and the others were mournful. There were 58 people on their side, but only 19 were left alive now. Even those who were lucky enough to survive were all severely injured. The casualty ratio was even higher than the war back then. This blood feud must be avenged in this lifetime. Dong Qianling swore through gritted teeth. Yun Xiaoyao watched quietly from the side, listening to Dong Qianling say in a low voice, "Uncle Yun, we know that you have your own beliefs and that you are destined not to act against the young emperor, but we need to end this karma." He did not turn around, still facing the grave as he said through gritted teeth, "We are friends with boss, with old General Chiu and with you but not with you Chen Kuan. The blood debt of 39 lives today must be repaid. Xia Bingchuan's voice rang out, 59 lives. He said sadly, and on my side 20 people have died. Qiu Yunsan's expression was somber as he wiped his long sword with a piece of white cloth quietly. His eyes were filled with rage. Before I came out, second uncle had just returned home and even told me not to lay a finger on the little emperor no matter what. Now I can't care anymore. When I've recovered, I'll go to the capital. Qiu Yunsan said through gritted teeth, sneaking into the palace is not a difficult task for us. Even if we have to risk our lives, we'll make this ungrateful bastard pay the price. Yun Xiaoyao was silent for a moment before he said, now that things have come to this, it's up to you all to do what you want. I won't care about this anymore. After Tianshan Cliff, I'll devote myself to the mountains and rivers, no longer caring about this world. His voice was filled with despair. Let's go. Let's go. Everyone took one last look at the tombs, then knelt down and kowtowed. Then they stood up and staggered forward. After walking for more than 10 miles, there was a forest at the top of the slope. The group's spirits were lifted. Up the slope, let's recuperate in the forest for a while. As they walked up the slope, their speed was infuriatingly slow because they were all injured. All of Yun Xiaoyao's deific consciousness was focused on the slope. If there were pursuers charging down from the slope now, they would definitely suffer heavy casualties. Fortunately, there were no signs of life in front of them. There was no enemy lying in ambush. As they walked, Xia Bingchuan, who was walking behind Yun Xiaoyao, suddenly felt his legs give way. He fell to the ground with a thud and cursed. *CK. He supported himself with his hands, wanting to stand up. Unexpectedly, his arms gave way and he rolled down like a watermelon. He had almost rolled to the bottom of the slope that was more than halfway up. Dong Qianling and the rest cursed in unison, *CK. Can you be a little more promising? Yun Xiaoyao flew down from the front like a large bird and supported Xia Bingchuan with one hand. Are you all right? Xia Bingchuan felt weak all over and smiled humorlessly. Sorry to trouble you, Uncle Yun. Yun Xiaoyao nodded and reached under his ribs to lift Xia Bingchuan up. However, at this moment Xia Bingchuan, who was severely injured and on the verge of death, suddenly had a sharp look in his eyes. A short sword appeared in his hand and was thrust into Yun Xiaoyao's heart with a swoosh, all the way to the hilt. Yun Xiaoyao, who was bent over to carry Xia Bingchuan, did not suspect Xia Bingchuan at all. He only felt a chill in his heart as the long sword pierced through his body, ignoring his protective skill. With a loud cry, Yun Xiaoyao threw Xia Bingchuan into the air with a palm strike. Xia Bingchuan spat blood, but he straightened his back in midair and flew 100 feet away, landing at the bottom of the slope far away. He actually managed to stand steadily, but he spat out a few more mouthfuls of blood. His face was pale as he said, Uncle Yun, I have offended you. Yun Xiaoyao straightened his body, the short sword still in his heart. His expression did not change as he asked faintly, why? Xia Bingchuan shook his head. With a wave of his hand, a whistling arrow flew into the sky and exploded with a loud bang. Sparks flew everywhere, catching everyone's attention. As he deflected the whistling arrow, Xia Bingchuan's body flashed and he retreated 1,000 feet in an instant. On the slope, Dong Qianling and the others who were about to ascend were shocked by the sudden turn of events. As if struck by lightning, they turned back in shock and looked at Xia Bingchuan in disbelief. For a moment, there was only shock in their hearts. No one spoke. After a moment, Dong Qianling cried out, Uncle Yun. He was about to rush down. Don't come down. Yun Xiaoyao sucked in a deep breath and said, hurry up and ascend the slope. It was the most awkward position they were in right now. Yun Xiaoyao climbed up the slope step by step, using only his physical strength to support himself. He did not even have to use any mystical qi. It was only when he turned that Dong Qianling and the others saw the short sword hilt in his heart. Their eyes widened as they trembled and their vision darkened. Xia Bingchuan. Qiu Yunsan screamed at the top of his lungs, *CK your ancestors. You son of AB***. Why? Far away Xia Bingchuan did not answer. Further away, the men in black who were said to have left surged out from the ground like a tidal wave, surrounding them. Their speed was incredibly fast and their momentum was stronger than before. Chapter 1423. Yun Xiaoyao struggled to walk up the hill step by step, his face still flushed. Not a single drop of blood seeped out from where he had been stabbed. He said calmly, retreat into the forest. Split up and leave quickly. Every single one of you who can escape counts. This old man will cut off your escape routes. Dong Qianling trembled. Uncle, are you all right? Yun Xiaoyao was silent for a moment before he said, I'm afraid it's not possible. That sword went straight into his heart. It's already a serious injury and the sword is poisoned. There's nothing we can do to save him. I can only give you 4 hours to escape. If you still can't escape after 4 hours and reach a safe place, I'm afraid. Dong Qianling was devastated. I'm not leaving. No matter what, I have to stay and ask that bastard why he did this. Yun Xiaoyao closed his eyes tiredly. If you don't leave, can you save me from death? If you don't leave, it's just one more person dying. Do you want your boss to be ambushed by Xia Bingchuan again when he comes down? His gaze was like lightning. If you don't leave and ask Xia Bingchuan why he did this, can you change everything? Dong Qianling and the rest were stunned. At this moment, Yun Xiaoyao, who was on the brink of death and had no room to turn things around, did not ask them to leave immediately like an ordinary person. Instead, he stated the outcome calmly. What can you do even if you know? Do you have the ability to rewrite the outcome of the sword that has been stabbed into my heart? Can you change the current crisis? Is there any other meaning to staying here other than sacrificing yourself for nothing? Yun Xiaoyao said tiredly, what I need now is to be undistracted and focused. What can you all do by staying here in your current state? Increase my burden as a burden? Yun Xiaoyao did not say this out loud, but everyone could hear it. As he spoke, the men in black at the foot of the hill were much closer. Yun Xiaoyao calmed down, his dry right hand gently gripping the hilt of his sword. A cold expression appeared on his face. He squinted his eyes and stared at the approaching black-clothed man at the foot of the hill. A murderous aura rose from him, growing bit by bit. He did not try to persuade Dong Qianling and the others anymore. He had done what he needed to. If they did not leave, Yun Xiaoyao did not want to waste his breath. What he needed to do now was to conserve his remaining energy as much as possible. Every bit and drop was precious and should not be wasted. Dong Qianling's breathing quickened as the expression on his face changed drastically. Beside him, Qiu Yunsan's expression kept changing. Suddenly he roared, Uncle Yun, I'm leaving. After he finished speaking, he led his remaining 8 guards and staggered, but his speed was not slow as he rushed into the depths of the dense forest. Once he left this place alive, he would spend his entire life only for revenge. Chun Wanfeng said with tears streaming down his face, Take care, uncle. Wanfeng swears to take revenge for today. After saying that, he also rushed out with his 7 guards. Today I will disregard my honor, but in the future I will definitely bathe the world in blood and avenge my uncle. At this time, Dong Qianling's voice rang out as well as he told his 4 guards, You guys should leave as well. Inform the family about this and tell them, the plum blossoms are still blooming, the winter is not cold. The family won't pursue the matter. The 4 guards laughed and said, Young master, if you don't leave, we won't leave either. Let's just die together. I believe the family will take care of our family. There's nothing to be sorry about. One of them chuckled and said, If young master hadn't said this, we might really have left. The 4 of them laughed warmly together. Every direct descendant of the Dong family had a saying that was exclusive to them, a final statement that only the person in charge of the family and themselves would know. As long as they brought back this saying, it would prove that they had said it themselves when they were conscious. A saying could only be used once and would change after that. This was one of the secret tricks used by the great families. Yun Xiaoyao glanced at him and asked in a low voice, Why don't you leave? Dong Qianling smiled and said, The 2 of them are enough for revenge. It doesn't matter if I'm added. Uncle is going on the journey alone. Little Lung is worried that you'll be lonely and wants to accompany you, but it'll be too little without me. If there's a chance to meet boss in the future, I'm sure that I can face him calmly. Dong Qianling chuckled. Yun Xiaoyao smiled faintly. I really can't take care of you when the battle starts. Dong Qianling said, I know what Uncle Yun is thinking. Just kill a few more people, there's no need to care about me. I've wasted Uncle Yun's words again. It's my fault. Yun Xiaoyao smiled. His expression was still cold, but his heart was warm. After all, not everyone in this world was ungrateful. There were still people who treated him sincerely. The men in black came closer and closer. When they were within 100 feet of each other, they slowed down and slowly surrounded them from 3 sides. The leader of the masked men smiled eerily and said, Greetings, King Yun. Yun Xiaoyao glanced at them indifferently and said, What a scheme, what a scheme, what a sinister one. You flatter me, King Yun. The leader of the masked men said apologetically, King Yun's cultivation base is unparalleled in Tianxian. This lowly one is at his wit's end. I'm only doing this because I have no other choice. Everything is to preserve my life, I really can't be bothered with any other methods. Dong Tianling asked from the side, what poison is on the sword? The leader of the masked men bowed and said, young Master Dong's reputation as a popinjay is out there. Even though your cultivation base has reached the pinnacle, I don't care about your opportunities. However, based on your loyalty, you deserve my respect. He continued, we know that King Yun has the antidote left behind by Lord Supreme Cloud to protect himself. Furthermore, his mystical skill is profound and he is immune to all poisons. Therefore, we didn't plan to use some ordinary poison. Not only would it be a joke, it would be futile. This poison doesn't belong to this world. There's no cure for those who have been poisoned. The masked men said, therefore, we are very confident in this poison. Otherwise, why would we dare to attack King Yun so recklessly? As they spoke, the other party had already completed the encirclement. The masked men in black lined up neatly in a formation, facing them seriously. They had no intention of chasing after Chun Wanfeng and Qiu Yun-san. Dong Tianling's gaze flickered as he asked, you don't plan to chase after them and eliminate any future threats? The masked man said softly, our target is only King Yun, not the four noble families. Even if young Master Dong wants to leave now, we won't stop him, much less young Master Chun and the rest. Dong Tianling gritted his teeth and said, if so, why aren't we making a move? The masked man took a step back and said, King Yun's skill is profound. Even though he's in a critical situation, he's still the scariest god of death in this world at the moment of his death. We know that we're no match for him, so it's the same to guard here. As long as we can confirm King Yun's death, it's fine. Dong Tianling was struck by a sudden realization. The other party had actually planned this far. They actually did not want to make a move. They had no intention of taking Yun Xiaoyao's life with their own hands. They just did not leave, staying here to surround him. Yun Xiaoyao was already fatally injured and poisoned. Even though he was suppressing it with pure mystical qi, such injuries could not be suppressed for long no matter how capable he was. The longer they dragged this out, the more advantageous it would be for the masked men in black. If they did not make a move and waited for Yun Xiaoyao to die from the poison, it would be the best outcome for them instead. Dong Tianling turned around and saw Yun Xiaoyao's eyes half-lidded, his expression indifferent and calm. He had no intention of starting a fight. Suddenly, something struck him as he roared, Xia Bingchuan, come out here right now. Amidst the masked men, Xia Bingchuan's face was pale. His eyes darted around, not daring to meet Dong Tianling's gaze. Using the masked man's shadow, he retreated step by step. As he moved further and further away, Xia Bingchuan slowly retreated from the crowd amidst Dong Tianling's venomous curses. He leaped onto a horse and whipped it with all his might, galloping away. Dong Tianling's curses grew further and further away until they could no longer be heard. Suddenly, Xia Bingchuan rolled off his horse and sprawled on the ground, pounding the ground and bawling his eyes out. The masked man in black stood opposite Yun Xiaoyao, unmoving. Yun Xiaoyao smiled and said, do you know how long I can hold on? The masked man shook his head. I don't know, but it won't be long. Then do you know that the spring and autumn families have left? I do. Then aren't you worried that they will spread the news and someone will come to save me? I'm not worried. The masked man said calmly, first, other than us, there are 200,000 soldiers lying in ambush outside. Whether it's from the inside or from the outside, no one and no force can break through this iron wall. Even a bird will find it difficult to enter. Second, the four noble families can't even take care of themselves now. We can't afford to split our manpower to take care of other matters. Third, even if unexpected reinforcements do come, we still have a batch of reinforcements waiting for them. If someone else comes, even if they can break through the iron wall of the outer army, they'll still be hunted down by our second layer. In fact, King Yun, you're only one of the bait now. The masked man smiled faintly and said, so, I'm really not anxious at all if we continue waiting and this stalemate continues. Instead, I wish that King Yun can hold on for a little longer. Perhaps Tai Jing, Fu Baogua, Sun Zihu, the Shangguan family of generals, and Qiu Jianhan will all be buried here. He chuckled and said, I'll wait for them right here. Even if I only manage to wait for one, it'll be a great merit. Yun Xiaoyao smiled faintly and said, are you trying to provoke me to make a move myself? The masked man replied respectfully, I'm speaking the truth. Your Highness is no longer a threat to us. No matter when your Highness wants to make a move, it's all up to your Highness to decide. With a wave of his hand, the masked men in black formed a cylindrical defensive formation in an instant. There were 40 to 50 of them in a group with the tips of their swords pointing outwards. The masked man said, "I know that I can't order your highness to do anything, and there's no way I can avoid paying the price of killing your highness. However, I can minimize this price as much as possible." Yun Xiaoyao smiled. A veteran of the battlefield indeed. Just this battle experience alone is already not inferior to Tai Zheng and Fu Baoguo's. "It's a pity?" the masked man asked. "What's a pity?" "It's a pity that you're destined to only answer in the dark forever. You lack Tai Zheng's righteous dominance, and you lack Fu Baoguo's all-round general's demeanor. If you were to fight these two men on the battlefield, you might be able to show off for a moment, but you'll definitely lose after a long time. You'll never be able to compete for supremacy. I can even say with certainty that once you're defeated, you won't be able to make a comeback." Yun Xiaoyao said with slight pity, "I'm only worried that if Yutong's military takes you as the marshal in the future, it'll be the end of the empire of Yutong's greatness and the land." The masked man in black let out a shrill laugh. "It's a pity that these aren't things that King Yun needs to consider anymore." Yun Xiaoyao smiled and said, "I'm only feeling pity for my efforts, not for you Chengkuan." The masked man looked at Yun Xiaoyao's expression and said with squinted eyes, "I wonder how much longer King Yun can suppress his injuries and the poisonous gas?" Yun Xiaoyao smiled faintly and said faintly, "Why don't you try? Aren't I playing along with you to buy time now?" The masked man's gaze began to turn doubtful. Where his gaze landed, the vicious dagger was stabbed deeply into Yun Xiaoyao's chest. However, Yun Xiaoyao's complexion was still rosy, his gaze calm and collected. Even his pupils had a clear distinction between black and white. All these signs pointed to the fact that Yun Xiaoyao did not show any signs of being poisoned. He did not even look like he was injured. Yun Xiaoyao's words and actions seemed to be even calmer than his own. He was playing along with him to buy time. Why was this so? Was he not injured at all? Was delaying time his true intention? As the thought flashed through his mind, the doubt in the leader's heart grew rapidly, and he became increasingly uncertain. Yun Xiaoyao looked at his expression and said with a mocking smile, "Why? Are you doubting your own judgment?" The masked man snorted and said, "What's there to doubt about?" Yun Xiaoyao said faintly, "There's no need to deny it. You're already suspecting that your original judgment was wrong. You're suspecting that I'm not poisoned or even that I'm not poisoned. Perhaps you're still suspecting that Xia Bingchuan is pretending to attack me and that everything is just an act, including Xia Bingchuan's departure on the horse just now. Is that not true?" The masked man chuckled. "What a joke. King Yun, you're indeed a member of the royal family. You're so adept at manipulating the mind of an emperor. You're already at this point, yet you're still able to use psychological warfare against me. Do you think it'll work on me?" Yun Xiaoyao chuckled softly. "When one is at the end of the road, one has to fight for a chance of survival. It's only human nature. How can there be a mind of an emperor? I've never understood such things." The masked man's gaze grew increasingly treacherous. If Yun Xiaoyao was seriously injured or poisoned, he would be the most anxious one right now. With every passing moment, Yun Xiaoyao's combat power would weaken. As long as he persevered and Yun Xiaoyao died from the poison, his side would be able to win without a fight. However, if he were to lose his composure and attack now, Yun Xiaoyao would be in an advantageous position, looking down from above and ready to strike. With the last of his strength, he would definitely inflict the greatest damage to them, achieving the outcome of his final struggle before his death. However, if he were not poisoned and was only stalling for time until Dong Tianling and the others recovered, when they did so, they would use Yun Xiaoyao as the arrowhead to break out of the encirclement. No one would be able to stop them then, the enemy would only be able to escape unscathed. Once that happened, it would be the start of the nightmare of the entire empire of Yutong. The question then arose, was Yun Xiaoyao injured? Was he poisoned? Was he stalling for time or was he deliberately mystifying things? Feng Lingtian said, "The author of the previous chapter has to be deleted. There's no other way." You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.